Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I think Sarah's on her way. We'll go ahead and get started since we already have a quorum. So I'd like to call to order our October 14th Design Review Board meeting. I want to do a housekeeping comment since we're in a different room. We're recording, but we don't have microphones, so please speak up when you're speaking. And if you're here to speak on behalf of a project, make sure that you speak up because the microphone's right here. So we'll start with the roll call, and we'll start with Perry.
Perry Childress, East Tennessee Community Design Center.
Matthew DeBarnleben, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Lisa Sierra Burnett, Business Development Representative.
Cameron Boland, AIA Representative.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Suzanne Caravella, Neighborhood Representative.
Dallas Yarman, Knox County Planning Staff.
Melinda Willard, Knox County Planning Staff.
Samuel Hawk, Knox County Planning Staff.
Mark Riddle, City of Knoxville Plans Review and Inspections.
I'm Christina McGraw-Stillery, City of Knoxville Law Department.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission.
Mike Reynolds, Knox County Planning.
Okay, thank you, everybody. The minutes of the September 17th meeting are in your packet. Hey, Tony. Has everybody had a chance to review those? And unless there are comments, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We just finished the roll call, so Tony Allen is here. Welcome. And then we'll move on to the staff report.
Alright, just to start out with the level 1 administrative approval since the last meeting. We had a new addition within the infill housing overlay that wasn't visible from the primary street. They originally got approval just for this 24-foot wide by 12 feet and 2 inches, rear addition. But during the process of work, the foundation here crumbled, so they're also reconstructing this addition. It's just going to have a shed roof with in-kind siding. They're replacing all the siding and the same block foundation. And we also approved a new garage within infill housing. So it's 24 feet wide by 30 foot deep at the rear of the property with board and batten siding.
Staff issued certificate 10A25DD for the installation of 15 thermal windows on the second story of Grace Building. No modifications will be made to the existing original windows. New partition walls will not block the windows, and other scope of the interior renovation is not reviewed with this request. So 10B25DD is a request to replace the Woodruff Building's existing wall sign with a halo sign of similar size. Now, the Woodruff Building is a contributing structure to the K Street Commercial Historic District, so the historic section of the guideline would apply. The proposed 43 square feet sign is below the second story windows on the signboard and proportional to the building, consistent with the guidelines. The guidelines discourage internally illuminated signs. In our staff report, we mentioned that this is the type of external signs or externally illuminated signs based on the definition, but zoning typically review halo signs as internal illumination, contrary to what is mentioned on the staff report. So the board should discuss the type of illumination. But generally, the board has previously approved internal illumination as well in downtown, particularly if this is proportional to the size of the building. With that, staff recommends approval of certificate 10B25DD, subject to one condition that the sign be placed centrally, maintaining equal distance from both sides of the signboard.
Great, thank you for that. We will, is the applicant present for this one?
He is on Zoom.
Okay. Can you give us your name? Can you give us your name?
My name is Baker Jones, and I'm with Signco. Address is 3101 Northwest Park Drive.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything to add to the comments?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay, great. Then we'll open it up to the board for conversation.
The 424 number isn't part of the approval today, is it?
No, it is not. That is existing.
Okay.
So during the day, it's gonna look the same, and at night, it's just gonna glow. Is that the intention?
That is correct. Now, it'll have a little bit more depth than what's currently there, because we typically build our reverse channels to be 3 inches deep. I think those existing letters are 2 inches deep, and then these letters will stand off the wall 1.5 inches to 2 inches as well to allow that halo effect. But yes, it'll look very similar during the day.
And can you talk to us a little bit about the electrical connections and how that's gonna appear from the front of the building?
So you will not, well, so we're gonna have standoffs that'll mount these letters off, and we will paint them to match the color of the building. And with those, you'll have for each one of those letters, we'll go through one of those standoffs and it'll have a power hole through the wall. But it'll be very small since these are LED wire, nothing like a neon penetration.
Okay, is it all like low voltage wire?
It is, that's correct.
All right, do we have any other comments? All right, then we'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve first staff recommendation.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
All right, next up, we have infill housing, and the first one on the list is new primary structure, case number 8A25IH at 3305 Subordinate.
So this case is for a new single-family house in Lonsdale, and it was postponed in August and September to allow the applicant to submit revised plans. A COA for the property's plat was issued administratively on August 26th. The revised plans include a rear entry garage and modifications to the facade. The average setback of the block face is 24 feet, and a 28.3 foot front setback is proposed, which is appropriate. The final site plan should include a walkway from the porch to the street. Parking is a concrete driveway accessed via Savoy Street that curves at the rear of the house to access a rear entry garage. The design guidelines state that, quote, on streets without alleys, garages should be at least 20 feet behind the front facade of the infill house with access limited to 1 lane. The proposed parking meets the design guidelines, and the final site plan should meet city engineering standards. The final site plan should include a tree in the front and rear yard, preferably including the existing mature oak. The block to receive new construction lacks significant context as it primarily features vacant lots and infill construction from the last 5 years. The 54-foot wide by 46-foot deep house is slightly deeper and is 10 feet to 30 feet wider than the other houses on the block. However, it is more comparable in scale with nearby houses that are not on the block. The house is proportionate to the dimensions of the lot, which is slightly wider than others nearby. The board should discuss the width of the proposed house. The design features a 9-foot 6-inch wide by 8-foot deep front porch, recessed under a shed roof and supported by 1 square column. Guidelines recommend that new construction feature porches with proportions and support similar to the context. The front porch is similar in scale to the infill construction present on the block and surrounding area, which primarily features partial width porches. The porch post should be at least 8 by 8 to be compatible with the context. The board should discuss whether an additional post should be added. The styles of the windows and doors are inconsistent in the sketch and elevation drawings, but all proposed options are appropriate. The applicant communicated that the sketch with single-hung windows was more accurate than the renderings. Final window and door selection should be approved by staff. A window should be added to the left elevation, which currently has no windows. The 612 pitch roof is the minimum approved by the guidelines. The board should discuss the width of the house and whether an additional post should be added to the front porch. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of certificate 8A25IH subject to the following conditions. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards and feature a walkway from the porch to the street. The final site plan to contain a tree in the front and rear yard with the mature oak tree in the rear to be retained unless revisions to parking make removal necessary. a window be added to the left elevation, final window and door selections to be approved by staff, and the porch post to be at least 8 by 8. I want to go ahead and mention that a new designer had a very short timeline to submit revised plans in time for the staff report. They have since revised the plans to address most of the conditions of the staff recommendation and other concerns identified by the board at previous meetings. Notably, they reduced the width of the house from 54 feet to 49, which is less than the alternate plans that were discussed at the last meeting. They're proposing a 6-inch chamfered post for the front porch, similar to these options. Revised the size, windows, detail, and roof lines of the front gable massing on the facade. They also added a window to the right elevation and changed the fixed window to single hung. The revised drawings meet all of the previously stated conditions of the staff recommendation, with the exception of adding a window to the left elevation, having an 8 by 8 porch post, and meeting city engineering standards. The board votes on the board votes on the plans that were included in the case file, so I have prepared an alternate staff recommendation based on these revised plans. This staff recommendation reflects the revised plans, does not request additional changes to the revised plans outside of adding a window to the left elevation, and was shared with the applicant before the meeting. If the board prefers this revised version of the plans and wants to ensure that that design is used during permitting, conditions of approval should include the final site plan to meet city engineering standards and feature a walkway from the porch to the street, the final site plan to contain at least one tree in the front and rear yard using the existing trees if at all possible, a window be added to the left elevation and to the right elevation, revising the fixed window to single hung, final window and door selections to be approved by staff, the porch post to be 6 by 6 chamfered posts and increasing the pitch of the porch roof, the width be reduced to 50 feet or less, narrowing the right gable massing on the facade, featuring paired windows in the gable fields on the facade to feature shakes and gable vents, and revising the roof line on the front gable massings on the facade to Dutch gables.
Okay, thank you for that. Is the applicant present?
Earlier,
Oh, hi. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Aaron Forstall, Ball Design Services, 1920 Greenland Way.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's report?
No, very much is that we did make the revisions. If you want to go back to my ones I sent you this morning, because that hand sketch was done like an hour. I really made that up quick. So we added the Dutch the Dutch gable end roofs on both ends of the house, keeping with the existing gable ends on either end. We're probably gonna end up we'd like to end up just doing the horizontal siding on the right and left elevations instead of doing the shake. That would be something that we would like to have considered, but we could do the shake and the horizontal siding. The chamfered post at 6 by 6 works really well. I like that design. I've got it approved by Infill before on other projects. And more or less, we really try to keep with a lot of the input that was provided from the previous meeting I attended on this project. And so we end to meet with the homeowners' wishes that they need for their particular property and the challenges that property provides. As far as the trees are concerned, if we can make them work to keep them, we will. If not, we'll add some trees. But pretty much everything on the staff report nails is pretty good for us.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up to board discussion. I have a question about this driveway, and I know it has to meet city engineering standards, but does that physically work to get a car into that garage?
It will when I'm done with it. I had less than a week to work out this out, so.
That's one of the conditions is to meet engineering, right?
Right, yeah, I mean,
I'll have to work with engineering.
It's not really-
Driveway and the turnaround for getting into that garage work, yeah.
What you showed block as the foundation. What's it going to be clad in?
Brick veneer.
It will be brick?
Yeah.
I'll wanted to include that in that's good. Brick's better. That's
I know you guys like it more than the block. Okay.
One other thing I guess the reason this came back is it's trying to let it be less of this less suburban and more like it to, fitting for the infill guidelines. And I think one of those that is still remnant is the shutters are not, I don't think these need to have shutters on it to be able to be fitting for the context or the infill guidelines. So that would be one comment. Your comment about not having the shakes at the gable ends, I think actually adds a lot of variability in a good way to the design. I think that should remain. Honestly, other than that, it's I guess it's less typical than what we typically see, but a lot of the updates have brought it more in kind, especially with the porch entry, and the way that you address the roof at the porch as well, I think helps the massing a lot.
The new window at the former garage area looks a lot better too.
Yeah, where it was split before, it looks a lot better paired together like that. Yeah, I agree.
I seem to remember when this one came to us originally, the garage was on the front.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the primary send back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The original complaint was the garage was on the front, so moving it to the back has addressed our biggest concern in the start, and I think all these other details have really kind of added to it.
I appreciate that. As far as removing the shutters, there's no objections to that. That's, I kind of like the shutters, but, I don't have a problem 86ing them at the same point. As far as, you mentioned something about a second post, if I may, and mind you that we knocked this out in less than 5 days. This will be a half post, only just above the guardrail at that point, so it will actually have the same resemblance as this one over here, going up to that point, so it does blend the two posts in. But because this isn't very wide, having a second post really doesn't serve any purpose. So I think that it actually adds architecturally just to be just a short post rather than a full height one.
I think that's more user and pedestrian friendly to keep it short. I'm okay with that.
I think so. What I was aiming for.
Is there a reason we can't add a window to the left side?
Can you go back to the floor plan? Okay, so I have 2 bedrooms here and I have a bedroom wall. This is where my bed would be most likely, both bedrooms, and it's for a lot of kids, so having a lot of windows on that side. I'd like to keep this window here. Obviously, it's the front of the house. But a bedroom wall, as you know, would be ideally right here for a bed, or possibly 2 beds on this wall, if that's possible. And that's another reason why I don't have any on that side. I could put a high window in there where you put them above the headboard, but I've gotten a lot of feedback and pushback on that in the past. It's not really fitting to the infill look to have that.
I already got one on the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's the bathroom window.
Right, but you were just saying a long linear.
I know, but you know what I'm talking about, the fixed ones, or the awnings that fit right over the headboard?
You
You see them mainly in contemporary designs, not really in more of the historical district stuff. I do modern contemporary, I like to throw in a lot of square windows.
Can you go back to the floor plan, please? So in that bedroom where the closet opens up and the door into the bedroom opens up, that's kind of a circulation zone where you're not probably gonna do a lot of furniture anyway. You could put a window sort of
If I
behind
had
that
more
closet
time, the
door.
doors would open into the closet.
Well, I'm just saying it could be in that, you could have a small double hung window kind of behind where the closet door is shown right now. In the,
Oh, you
on
mean
the
like
room
right
side.
here on the
Yeah,
side
yeah.
where the door is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
If
then
I
you're,
put a small window there, yeah, I could
You
probably
could
do
put
like
a
a 2.0 or something that's like.
or like a bedside table could go under it, and you could still put your bed in the middle of that wall.
I could do that, it's not a big deal.
One thing too with the left side of the house, as you're coming up the street, I think the left side is going to be the primary visual that so I do think a window on that left elevation is important.
And I think where you're suggesting it's almost centrally located, but not dead center, so it's like a nice location proportionally.
Just let some nice light into that room. If we don't have any other discussion or comments, we'll entertain a motion. And just to note that I think the best way to make a motion is to cite the alternate staff recommendation.
I'd make a motion to approve, for staff recommendations, alternate staff recommendations, but also include the condition that a brick-clad foundation is ultimately submitted. A window on the plan or project left elevation is included.
That's included in the.
That's number
It
two.
is
Yeah.
wonderful. What other? And that the shake siding at the end gables remains, and that the shutters are removed from the design.
So the shakes are.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you all
number
right with modifying condition 8 to say, to just also say the shakes be included on the side elevations as well, and the rear? Like I could just change it to, all gable fields to feature shakes
It's not
and
awesome.
to retain gable vents on the facade.
I was less inclined to say it was needed on all gable ends, but does anybody else have it? That was just the front facing ones.
I think front's fine.
Front.
Front facade.
I think the way you got it written is good there.
In front facade's fine, and then the two sides left and right I can remove. Is that right? Okay, that works for me.
Is that clear enough?
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Everyone, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
I'm batting fourth floor now. I'm not batting
Okay, next up we have 470 Hiawassee Avenue, which is house number 9825 IH.
This application is for a new one-story single-family house, and it was postponed last month to allow the applicant to attend. The plans have not been revised since then. The average front setback of the block face is 25.4 feet, and the house is proposed to be set 21 feet from the front lot line, which is appropriate. Parking is accessed via the alley, which meets the guidelines. The final site plan should include a tree in the front and rear yard, which should be the existing mature tree, if at all possible. The block to receive new construction is characterized by modified Queen Anne cottages, minimal traditionals, and infill construction. The 28-foot wide by 46-foot deep house is generally proportionate to the dimensions of the lot and other houses on the block. It is similar in scale. However, it has a zero-step foundation, and the guidelines recommend that foundation heights be similar to the context, which features raised foundations. The design features a 6-foot deep front porch with a front gable roof with shingles in the gable field and a header that is supported by 2 square posts. The porch depth should be increased to 8 feet, and the post should be at minimum 8 by 8. The windows and door are compatible with the context, and all elevations feature sufficient transparency. The 612 pitch roof is the minimum typically approved by the guidelines. The exterior of the slab foundation should be parge coated or clad in stucco. The board should discuss the proposed foundation height. With that, staff is recommending approval of certificate 9A25IH, subject to the following conditions. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards with minor revisions to parking placement to be approved by staff. The final site plan to include a tree in the front and rear yard, retaining the existing mature tree if at all possible. The foundation to be parge coated or clad in stucco, and the siding to be clapboard style with an overlap, and the porch depth to be revised to 8 feet, and the supports to be at least 8 by 8.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Chris Staley, it's 1501 Washington Avenue.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
I do not. My only question would be why the 8 by 8 post as opposed to a 6 by 6 post?
That's generally the proportions that we have. It's just a thicker column and looks more substantial. Anything really bold that's a bit, I guess, less substantial. I think the project we just reviewed was 6 inches. Could it be a 6-inch with trim added to it?
Yeah, I could do a 6-inch post with a trimming around top and bottom. I typically do a 6-inch post.
Sure.
I know we reviewed 8 by 8 on the last one.
I think visually with that trim that you're describing would help with the proportions. It's just that what you'll get is 4 by 4 and it's terrible because it's
so typically I'll do a 6 by 6 with a inch trimming around top and bottom.
I think that sounds good. This is a habitat home, correct?
Correct.
So that's the zero threshold.
Correct.
So we keep seeing these, and I think one thing, I was thinking about this last night that would help it's really the porch, and I know the porch does not need guardrails, and if it's increased to 8 feet, I think visually that would bring both a accessible and equitable project that's, then able to be housed by anyone, which is great. Having the actual guardrails and pickets, I think, would help it. And I know there could be a comment that's like, well, you can't just come off the edge. Well, you wouldn't if it was raised 4 feet in the air anyway, right? So I don't know if the rest of the board thinks that's a good idea or not. I just think that like that front elevation is always what we're compromising on, and it's less the steps and more about the guardrails. I think that gives it some enclosure and helps it a lot.
We have requested handrails on porches as a visual in the past, so there's a precedent for that approach because the zero step ones do tend to look a little naked.
Yes.
With you don't, because your guardrail's not required, or even the 36-inch handrail.
Right.
I'm happy to throw a guardrail around the front porch.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Just for my own curiosity, how is the landscape treated on these, like at the front of the porch?
So our goal is always to minimize obstruction. We want to take down as few trees as possible. Obviously, sometimes we have to. If we do, we always replace.
But you're asking about.
But I mean, at the front of the porch, does it stay open, or is there a flower bed, or is there shrubs or something across the front of the porch?
No.
Okay, it's all open.
Do you think a railing would help it? I've wondered too if, and I don't know if you all discussed this from a construction standpoint, but if the house finished floor elevation could be raised to 6 or 8 inches above grade, with the idea that you're using that 25 feet of front sidewalk to ramp up to it, it would even help give it, I think what we're all battling with is like, the character of the older houses is always to have a little bit of that like height above sidewalk level.
I mean, realistically, we're going to be at least a block above grade in almost any situation. So although it's drawn on grade, we're going to be at least a block above grade in almost every situation, sometimes more. Then we're kind of a ramp situation. We try to avoid the ramp situation because, in my opinion, that's more of an eyesore.
Yes, it is.
If it's a structured ramp, but I guess what I'm saying is if it's 6 or 8 inches and you can slope the concrete walk
Yeah, no, that would be
and landscape around it, and
perfect
that's
scenario.
pretty subtle.
Correct, yeah.
That plus, I think Cameron's comments about handrails and balusters, just give it more of that, what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm happy to add handrails and balusters.
The other comment on the back porch, the back door, does it need any sort of awning over it to protect it from rain? As you're exiting?
I traditionally have not. I've actually
just put flashing over it to keep water out?
Correct.
Okay.
I've never done any sort of awning over a back door or side door.
Okay.
It seems like it would be beneficial given this is an accessible unit. They're going to be moving slower through the space. The front porch, I don't know if anyone's commented on that yet, but the front, I know you've built these several times. Is there any way to engage the front porch roof with the rest of the massing to make it feel less tacked on? It would essentially mean like engaging one side.
Oh, you mean shifting it like that, right?
Yeah, shifting it or extending it to one side of the house.
Or even just adding a water table trim board with shakes above so that it looks like the same articulation as the porch.
Yeah, that would help it engage a little bit more.
So if I kept it as a center set porch, the option I would have, if I kept it as a center set porch, instead of doing shake on the front, if we did board and batten on the front, continue that throughout the main gable.
Could you shake on both? I think the design guidelines discourage board and batten, don't they? Vertical siding.
Yeah, but we've approved board and batten as an accent.
Oh, accent. Okay. Well, then in that case, that could be.
I would rather do board and batten if I have to do the main gable, but I would like to keep it as a center set porch.
I feel like that might get it a little more integrated, like you're talking about.
So both gable ends would be board and batten. Well, then I would say potentially the back gable would be board and batten as well because it's a pretty blank facade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just means that the gable insets are the accent all around. And I think that's starting to make these, which we're going to see these again, the Habitat homes, it's starting to be like, can they be more comparable to the adjacent homes. I do agree with you. I think that the proportions of that would be a lot nicer if that porch, it wouldn't mean the floor plan at all would change. You could literally stack that to the left, and now that entry is housing a group of windows and door.
I think it would also make the porch more usable, like you could put furniture in a room to one side of the door rather than having
On either side of it.
on both sides of the door.
Oh, you mean extending it all the way to the right?
I think he's saying
Either end, yeah.
Just doing the right set porch instead of the center set.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because the way a center set porch that's not very wide like that, it really functions like a stoop more than a porch. Like the users aren't going to use it as a porch. So I think, you know, if you offset it to one side, it creates an outdoor room, so to speak. So that's the main reason. The whole idea of encouraging porches is to encourage activity on the porches. And so I think that would help.
Is there a reason why, so it's not gonna change the interior floor plan, the approach would be the same to Tony's point, like it's gonna make probably a more usable porch rather than having the space to saddle back. Is there a reason why the center is what you wanna do?
So when I build these, obviously I build these typically with volunteers. It's easier for us to build these and frame these with this center set porch as opposed to a right set porch as far as with setting trusses.
Okay.
It's engaging the porch roof with the main roof, I think, is the complication that the volunteers don't grasp quite as well as.
Correct. Yeah, this is the easiest floor plan for me to build with volunteers.
That's the chance for the volunteers to learn how to do that. But I guess I don't understand if it's trusses, they're all running like left to right across that. It's still scabbing onto the front facade with the front framing, no matter what side you justify the framing on. So how is that any more complicated than center versus left to right?
Because it has to be aligned with the main roof. I think that's Perry's point.
Correct. And engaging your sheeting out from one to the other, you know, structurally there. I mean, it's certainly not a complicated thing for most
But is
builders.
the porch truss as well, or is it rafter frame?
So the porch is truss, but to your point, when I'm out there working with volunteers, most of these people have never touched a hammer before.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to simplify the building process is part of our model.
I understand
I want to
that.
make it as easy as possible for new volunteers to come out to be able to build and be engaged.
Is the guardrail going to be too complicated?
Well, that's something I'll do myself.
Okay. Well, I was just asking.
No.
Specifically about it.
Well, and other issues we've had when we've discussed expressing porches, if you moved it to one side or the other but did not engage the main roof, you wind up with a little strip of teeny pieces of siding that's difficult.
But if it was right under the fascia, it would look like a nested porch, which I think would look really nice.
If you could bring it over and not engage the main roof, you know, as that gets tight, that becomes, like you're saying, right under the fascia, a difficult engagement. You really need enough room to get in there with your siding.
We typically use crown molding as opposed to a double J channel to finish off our siding, which makes you immediately need at least 3.5 inches.
All right.
Something I have often done that I think contractors enjoy about me is I consider, what if I had to build that? How am I going to get my hammer in there and put that piece in? Now, of course, these days you're all using those pneumatic things. Go, blah. Oh, that's a lot easier.
No, we're still
swinging hammers.
Power tools.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here trying to make something indestructible, and I often will think about exactly how you actually get the hammer to where it is too. But if it is in the spirit of the program and what you're trying to do to keep it centered, I think that's absolutely acceptable. And I think that it's going to look that much better with the material change above at each gable end, regardless.
Yeah, and with that condition, I would add a thick band below that, at the same line as the porch eave, just to kind of connect that porch horizontally with the eaves.
I mean, if you wanted me to, I could do a 1x6 fascia across the front,
freeze board,
wrap it with a metal, and then shake or.
Yeah, I would just continue to freeze board all the way around.
I don't want to complicate your life more than is necessary, but this is just a suggestion. That if you made the front door to the far left, of the porch, switched that window and made it a door. And then behind that door, you could put a coat closet to make use of that area behind the door. And then you have an outdoor room on the front porch and a little bit more storage space inside. And I know that makes the living room a little smaller, but
So these houses are pretty tight as far as living and dining area. So I would prefer not to have to put anything else in that area.
Yeah.
Once you start putting furnishing in there, it does feel tight,
Yeah.
especially with this floor plan.
understood.
Is that a 6x6 just on the rendering?
It is.
I don't have a problem with it, like on this design. I think part of it is, I would prefer the 8x8, and part of it is just the length of that porch, you know, how long it is. I do think it would feel more, like those columns would feel more pertinent to that load, you know, if they were a little bit wider. So I would, you know, whether you do it on this one or not, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. If the porch was any wider, I'd say it's gotta be. But in the future, if 8's possible, or if it's possible on this one, I do think proportionally agree better. Like that last house that we were looking at, that stoop was so little that the 6x6 post felt fine. But this one would look even a little bit more craftsman, like your kind of inspiration here. It was a little thicker.
I'm perfectly happy doing an 8x8 post. It was more just a question, curiosity.
Yeah, it's just visual. We know you don't need it structurally. It looked good.
Do you have any other comments? If not, we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve certificate 9825IH based on the staff recommendations. Let's see, and also to include continuing the front porch freeze board around the entire house, like both gable ends, with the shake siding above, front and back gables in addition to that porch, and to include 8x8 porch posts, which is already on staff review. Very, very good. And you said the 8-foot depth. Did I miss anything? Porch.
The porch.
Oh, and to include a porch railing with balusters.
And can we give them the option to do board batten above the freeze board?
Oh yeah, above the freeze board, an accent cladding shape or board batten.
Did you also want to add anything about the 6 to 8 inch grade with the pathway?
Yeah, if you don't think that'll be a problem, can we add that to the approval?
Absolutely.
That it'd be at least 6 inches above grade. At least that we're ramping up with the sidewalk. I think I checked all the boxes.
Thank you guys.
Are you guys cool for what?
Yeah, okay.
It's the 6-inch grade just on the.
It's the finished floor. for the
Finished
house.
floor.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you for your help.
Thank you guys.
Next up, we have 225 East Oldham Avenue, which is case number 9C25IH.
All right. This duplex was approved last November with case 11H24AH, and it is returning to the board for review after deviations from the approved plans were identified during the final inspection. The foundation height was increased, which resulted in significant modifications to the front porches, specifically the staircase. The rear patio design was revised to add a raised wood deck with a dividing wall. The applicant is also requesting approval to add a gravel parking pad accessed via the alley. This case was postponed in September to allow the applicant to submit an alternative design for the front porches and the parking pad, which were provided. They're proposing to centralize the height in a singular staircase that projects from the landing between the porches with lattice screening and the addition of newel caps on the porch hand railing. They're proposing to add 2 approximately 3-foot tall planter boxes in front of the front porches and 2 shorter planter boxes on either side of the porches. Proposed material options include brick, stuccoed and painted block, or landscaping gravity block. And the proposed landscaping options are boxwoods for the front porch and either sky pencil hollies or green giant arborvitae for the sides. This is a middle housing project, and the approved plans did not include parking as it is not required. The applicant coordinated with city engineering to determine the minimum size for 4 parking spaces as requested by the board and has revised the parking size accordingly from the previous submission. The proposed 36-foot wide by 32-foot 6-inch deep gravel parking pad at the rear of the lot, accessed via the alley, meets the infill housing design guidelines and the middle housing standards. The modifications to the rear patio meet the design guidelines. Guidelines recommend that foundation heights be, quote, comparable to historic houses in the neighborhood, and most of the houses on this side of the street feature raised foundations to account for the slope. The approved plans included a 1-foot 8-inch tall foundation measured at the facade. The applicant reached out to staff in February, soon after the permit was issued, to request to increase the foundation to approximately 3.5 feet, which staff approved since the height was comparable to the other houses on the block. However, the building was constructed with a 7-foot tall foundation measured at the left corner of the facade, making it significantly tall in scale with the block that only features 1-story houses. The board should discuss whether shrubs should be planted at the sides of the foundation near the corners of the facade to screen the foundation, in addition to the proposed planter boxes. The design guidelines state that, quote, porch posts and railings should be like those used in the historic era of the neighborhood development, and that, quote, porches should be proportional to the original porches on the block. The height, form, and detail of the constructed front porches is incompatible with the historic houses nearby and significantly increases the visual scale of the structure. The proposed central staircase massing reflects the form of historic houses within the neighborhood with raised foundations to account for grade and is smaller in scale than what was constructed. Alternative staircase options are limited due to the height of the building and the shallow depth of the front yard. The lattice screening is more compatible with the building and other houses on the block than the installed wood decking, and it benefits from the screening of the planter boxes, which introduce a horizontal break that minimizes the visual scale. The planter boxes reflect other efforts to mitigate the effect of tall foundation heights in the neighborhood through the use of masonry, such as planter boxes and wing walls. The addition of newel caps on the staircase contributes additional architectural detail. These revisions meet the design guidelines and are informed by the context. In the opinion of staff, any of the proposed materials for the planter boxes can be appropriate, although landscaping gravity blocks would be less preferable due to the exposed concrete. The design guidelines recommend that native or naturalized shade trees be used, so the sky pencil holly, which is classified as invasive, is not an appropriate option. Boxwood is a native species, and green giant or arbor vitae is neither native nor invasive. These options are appropriate, as are other native or naturalized shrubs. Final landscaping selection should be approved by staff. The board should discuss whether shrubs should be planted along the side elevations near the facade corners to screen the foundation, in addition to the proposed planter boxes, and whether additional design interventions are necessary to reduce the visual scale of front porches. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of Certificate 9C25IH, subject to the following conditions. Final landscaping selection to not include invasive species and be approved by staff, and the final site plan to meet city engineering standards.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present?
He is on Zoom.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Cho, 1140 Belmont Avenue.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
Just a painful recap to hear about my mistakes again, but hoping to turn this nightmare in Oldham into something that's presentable for you guys, and really think that the newly proposed design really does accomplish that, and so open to your feedback.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to board discussion. I have a question about the porch, and why is it offset from the center? Why is the stair offset from the center?
The middle staircase, you mean?
Yeah, the middle staircase, and then both porch roofs are shifted slightly to the right, so they're not. Oh, that's existing.
Mirror it, it's just two of the same.
It's two of the same side by side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so the middle staircase down the center, that was originally recommended by staff, which ultimately we totally succeeded in that. I think it makes it look much better. But because of the current orientation of the porches, that is where it would end up.
Okay.
Is the porch, well, one question I have is about the level of this porch, like the floor level of the porch. The one that is currently existing, is it the same height as the finished floor elevation inside the house? And is the plan to keep that height I couldn't tell from the photos versus the renderings if it's being lowered one step.
Currently, the porch is the same height as the finished floor inside the house, yes.
And is that what's proposed here? Because it almost looks lower, especially compared to the siding. Like the siding in the existing photos is lower than the porch height, but it's shown the same here.
Yeah, the rendering might not be 100% exact in that regard, but the current proposal that I've submitted would keep the height of the porch floor the same as it is currently.
So just to clarify, the intent is that the porches remain as they're constructed and the porch roofs remain as they're constructed, and we're really just talking about the treatments where the stairs are and the zone between the stairs and the street.
Yeah, that's correct. So in the current proposal, we would be tearing off the existing 2 staircases, and then we would be rebuilding the single staircase down the middle, and then add in the raised planter beds to add in that terraced visual to do what we can to call attention away from the height. Adding the lattice to make it contextually appropriate, and then adding in the plantation to add further screening as well.
Thank you. Do we have any documents available of what was approved originally?
Yes, so this is what was approved with the plans during permitting, so it addressed what they said. Just give me 1 second for what was
approved by the.
Yeah, I understand. I'm trying to see that may not be in this package. Okay, let me pull this up real quick. I think I've saved it in here. Okay, let me see, I might be able to. Oh yeah, it should be.
Last week, or last month.
Is that too steep for the elevation?
That's what it's like.
You're not paying attention.
Yeah, I just.
I wasn't here last month, that wasn't here.
Right, sorry about that. These are the plans that were submitted back last year that got approved. So overall, they're very similar, at least in the front, to what was approved with permitting. The board did, one of the conditions of approval for that case was that the porch supports be revised in size and designed to better align with the neighborhood. So they increased them from 4x4 to 6x6. And the other was elevating the front porch on a foundation / porch flooring instead of the proposed post extending to the ground level, extending to the ground level with steps as depicted. So to meet these conditions, they just revised some notes, but the overall rendering on the front is pretty similar.
We approved the offset.
Yes, that was approved.
It just didn't look better this way.
It wasn't as noticeable when there wasn't a continuous porch.
Yes.
Like once you tie them together and have the centered stair, it becomes obvious.
What do you know the width of the stairs that would be built?
The new ones, the newly proposed ones?
Yeah.
I
Because
think
they look wide,
they are,
but I would be curious.
yeah, I think they are somewhere between like 42 and 48 inches, thereabouts. I would have to get an exact number for you, but I think that's around the range.
I think
That's pretty common to have wide steps like that.
I think it's wider than that. It looks like it's 6 feet probably.
I guess to me, like the rendering looks wider than if you look at like what's there. The space between it just doesn't look that as wide as it appears in the rendering.
You just mean it's available to even post it.
Right.
Oh, in the photo.
Like in the photo of what's currently there, it just doesn't look as wide as it does in the rendering.
It only wants us to see the rendering.
Some of the
Jason House.
Nobody wants to see the photos though, right? We don't need to see photos again.
Well, it's 32 inches.
Yeah.
Good eye, Jude. Seriously.
Yeah, they're centered somehow.
It's offset a little bit.
It's offset, you can see
I think the windows are centered about the midpoint of the gable with the valley, and then everything else is shifted to the right.
Yeah, again, that it was basically identical, side by side units is what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the task at hand is to evaluate the new porch condition, not what we already approved.
I think the unfortunate part is though the renderings were appreciated that it doesn't actually show the grade as what it actually is because there's yet another third tier in front of the brick, which is just the mass of the grass. So if we look at the actual street photos, it drops off another 5 feet. So there's, there it is again. Like it's a layer cake of three pieces going up to it. So I think no matter what you do to it, it was going to be imposing when you're on the sidewalk regardless. But I know that Sarah or someone else or Suzanne might have suggested the planter, and I think that does help it a lot. I think it absolutely has to be, in my opinion, has to be brick. It needs to be something substantial. When I've seen these houses, like I forgot the street in front of Fountain Lanes next to Amigos, there's a lot of houses on some really steep sites, and I was staring at those the other day, and they've got brick all the way up to the underside of the porch, and it's pretty grandiose and substantial. And I think if, rather than doing the entire thing out of brick, that some of it with that planter to start to break it down would help it a lot. If it stays at brick and not like a parch coat or something other than that. And I also think the plantings absolutely have to be evergreen and not something that would fade in the fall or winter, because it's a totally different condition when those go away. I don't like architecturally leaning on planting to solve the problem. I think it's to accentuate it, but in this case, I think it's trying to solve an issue, so it needs to stay there throughout the 12 months.
I have a historical experience with this sort of situation. I can't tell you what year, but it's probably been at least 10, maybe more. We were reviewing a house in the Lonsdale infill overlay and approved it, and they built it. This was early in the infill housing days. And the contractor went in and built it 3 or 4 blocks higher than we had approved. And at that point, he was used to building houses where your main concern was the fall on your plumbing. And he'd never encountered a situation where if you built it higher, it would be a problem, only if you built it lower. And so I worked with him some on a similar solution to come back. How can we mitigate the visual height of this thing? And I think this does a pretty good job of it. We had tried it on this one. The unfortunate situation on the Lonsdale house is it was a much shallower front lawn and at the top of a retaining wall already. And so the screening really did look like Cameron's saying, like a kind of putting a Band-Aid in there. And I think this is pulled off, especially the integration with the big center stair has worked better. The unfortunate end of the Lonsdale house was we made him lower it 2 blocks. They had to bring in a house mover, pick up the house, take 2 rows off and set it back down. I don't think that's a practical solution here, and I don't think it's necessary. So I mean, I would move to approve this solution.
It was going really well until it ended.
So that's interesting, Perry. We could lower the house.
I think that the wider steps help mitigate some of the.
I think my question is, are they actually wider?
Are they possible?
Is it possible?
Do we know what that dimension is?
Can we pull up the picture of the existing? Because maybe you could make it wider than the 2 columns, but you'd have to terminate the railings.
The outside of the columns.
It looks like 3.5 feet between the 2 columns. But you could make the stairs wider and then come up with a dual post condition or something.
The one thing too is so if you notice on the left-hand side, the brick where the far left, that's a lower wall than what's on the right hand side. But the lower part of the lot is the left hand side. So I don't know. Somebody.
It would be higher, you mean?
Yeah. Right. Should the left one be higher?
Or should they just be the same?
Or does it need to be the same? Yeah. Because the left hand side of the lot sits lower than the right hand side.
Right, you're saying it would be opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that it just wouldn't be symmetrical.
Right. Would you put the lower, or would you put the brick lower on the right hand side and higher on the left hand side?
Yep. So they align.
Yep.
So, just so I understand, are you suggesting that the top of each side bed aligns together, or?
Yes.
That'd be better.
Yeah, the tops of the planters should be at the same elevation, so it looks like they're aligned, which means that one of them will have to be taller than the other one overall to account for the slope of the site.
It also seems like the beds should engage more. They're just like kind of tacked onto the sides. Could you bring the side ones forward to meet the front?
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. So basically, it's the same planter that wraps around the edge instead of two separate planters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then on that point, those landscaping elements that go there, those species, you mentioned green giants, but don't those grow to like 40 or 60 feet at maturity? It seems like the emerald green, emerald might be better.
Emerald green arborvitaes.
Yeah, those would be better.
Yeah, those are like the triangular. They're much smaller than the green giants that you're.
Yeah, that's right. They grow to like 15, so I think that'd be more appropriate.
We're not going to drop the building 2 blocks, but I do think that we need to consider the actual photo of from the street, given the fact that the street approach next to the mailbox is kinked over 30 inches. Given the fact that you're coming back with this triumphant central or pseudo-central staircase now, and that's the actual context, I don't think it's infeasible to ask that the stair approach from the sidewalk be revised to actually align with the new stair that you're putting in, as well as, I guess the mailbox might have to shift, but that would then let all of those moves that you're having to do actually have congruent and like actual alignments from the street up to the house.
The other thing I wondered is if, we're boxing ourselves into this corner of the centered stair, which is causing all these dominoes. Should we look at 2 front-facing stairs? And I say this very cautiously because I'm like, maybe there's dominoes there, I'm not seeing them. But putting it in the middle does cause other visual problems that now we need to resolve.
I don't think anything is going to fix the fact that those porch roofs aren't centered on the gable
on the house.
And I think, one thing that helps too with the center staircase, it's setting back into the porch, so it's not fully extending as if it was sitting on the front.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I
You can
see.
I prefer the center stair because it looks more like it's one house,
Yeah.
which fits the neighborhood.
You have to set the building back.
Yeah.
To achieve that same thing.
And again, I don't know if it, go ahead.
Yeah, part of the one center staircase, again, that was not our original idea. We definitely give credit. I really do mean credit to staff for that because we think it's a great idea. Part of that is to limit, the continual, forward placement of the extension of the house. Does that make sense? And so if you're suggesting the 2 stairs going straight, that just gets more and more. I just don't know if it's feasible. By then, you're looking at landing that on that hill, and it's just going to become taller visually. I think that's just what we're trying to get away from.
They would also have to recess like the center stair so that they do the same extension. I'm not saying it's the best idea. I'm just wondering how we can solve the center issue.
I like the center stair. I think one last comment I have on it is the lattice. I don't remember if that was our recommendation, but it seems like everywhere I've seen wood lattice like that, there's a pretty substantial support under each column, and it's more like a panel inset. And so I actually prefer the wood slat to feel more sturdy and would hold up better.
I think we talked about this last time because there's precedent in the neighborhood with the lattice, a lot of lattice in the neighborhood. And so I agree from a design standpoint that the horizontal looks better, but context-wise, I guess there's more of a precedent for that.
Well, and also.
Yeah, I think what I observed driving around the neighborhood were a lot more examples of the lattice than the horizontal slats. I mean, we would be good with either one, obviously, but we're just trying to stay within the context of the area the best we could.
Are you gonna paint the lattice, or is it all gonna be pressure treated, just raw pressure treated wood, or is it gonna be stained pressure treated?
Yeah, we were gonna do like a semi-transparent stain on the front porches.
One thing that I guess as you look at it, is this stair is going to a landing that isn't covered, which is a bit odd. That I guess more and more it's like everything's starting to move it towards is this one house rather than the duplex, which is a bigger conversation of middle housing and duplexes and house scale buildings and all of that. But it's strange. It isn't insurmountable, but it is odd that you walk up the landing and that's right when you start going downstairs is where all the rain's pouring in on you to leave. I wanted to go back to my comment about the stair from the sidewalk. You haven't built the house. Is that are you able and or allowed to reconfigure that concrete step up from the sidewalk to align with the stair that you're putting in to resolve this?
I'm not really certain as to what we can or can't do with the existing grandfathered in stairs. Yeah, I'm just not sure on that. But I think that's what you are referring to.
What you just said there gives me pause, because if it's grandfathered in, meaning it doesn't meet code, then you're gonna have to build it to code, and it's gonna be a whole other discussion about handrails and guardrails and other pieces.
Rise and run.
Rise and run. So that might be a non-starter for it. Certainly help it then.
Yeah, let's revisit the porch roof comment before we move on too far. Can you go to the actual photo? Yeah. Are those at an elevation close enough to where they can be tied together and re-roofed? So that the roof is continuous across the front?
Yeah, anything can be done with cash, for sure.
I'll do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there
I think that
anything?
would accentuate the offset though if you make it monolithic like that. At least with that break, it gives a little relief to the offset.
With the break, it kind of picks up the townhouse and kind of,
yeah,
as opposed to a porch that's not in the middle.
I like the offset idea of that roof being justified to one side. But the part that kind of muddles it is the posts in between it aren't equally spaced at that point. If you connect the roof, then the posts would need to be
No,
equally
they're
spaced.
weirdly.
They'll be like oddly saying we're still centered.
Okay.
Which then if you move the post, then it'll be in front of the window and it's just
I think it's impractical that there's not a covering over it, but I think it does look best to leave it without the roof continuing. Can we revisit the lattice? Where did we land on that?
We didn't land.
I will say one thing, even though I also don't love lattice, one thing that I think it's doing that's a little positive is that there's so much wall on the front of this house that looks so solid. That having a little more void in that material would be nice. So it's like if we were going with horizontal slats, I'd make space out a little bit more. But the lattice at least does have some more void in it, which in this, the rendering does help, I think.
Would you be able to access the underside of the porch at all? Because there's going to be a lot of mice and things that want to live under there over time. Is there an accessible, like you can actually get into it?
Under the porch.
Yeah.
We, as currently existed, the horizontal slats do allow us to pretty easily construct a door, so there are doors up there. With the lattice, well, and also with the raised beds, we probably have to get a little bit more creative in creating doors that are streamlined and not noticeable. So
Well, you have
to look at that.
You have crawl space access to the main body of the house. So can you put
Yes.
crawl space access under the porch?
Yeah, like the side screenings.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as exists currently, we do have a door, and so I'm just saying that if we went with lattice, I'm sure we could figure out a way to cut it going to the lattice. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Suzanne's saying if you've already got crawl space access, you can just access the underside of the porch via the crawl space. You could have another opening from the crawl space into it on the back side.
Oh,
In the foundations.
In the foundation.
cutting into a block foundation and
Yeah.
opening the door.
Yeah, just so it's not visible. It's just a suggestion.
That'd be a little bit involved, but that could be potentially,
Well, I mean, it's weird to have a door on the side of your porch. That's probably why we're suggesting that. I mean, as you built it today, like that's strange. I mean, I know it's usable storage, which is nice, but that's also front porches aren't usually approved for front porch storage. Is what we're looking for.
Did you specify anywhere the height of the brick walls?
We didn't specify specifically. We are open to that. We just wanted to basically make sure that they were raised enough to, give enough visual coverage to reduce that visual height impression. So we're open to that, but really was thinking about 3 feet or so on the front beds, that is.
How's everybody? I don't know how everybody feel about that.
Pretty good about that. I wouldn't go lower than that, but I also wouldn't go much higher.
Yeah.
I think then you're gonna lose the benefit, so.
Right.
36 to 42 inches maybe,
It looks like it's 21 to 28 if you count 7-inch risers.
like it's lower in this picture.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to categorize the height is by how many risers, because to Jared's point, it's gonna be a different height on each side to maintain that top edge. So if the top edge is at 1, 2, 6 or 7 risers up, then it is what it needs to be to get all the way down to the ground, depending on the ground plane.
Sure.
Okay, we've had a lot of discussion. Is there any new topics that need to be discussed?
Did we discuss, were we supposed to discuss the parking pad in the back or the gravel? Is that part of this?
That is part of the application. At the last meeting, y'all have requested that they reduce it to the minimum necessary for 4 parking spaces. I was copied on the email thread, and I know he worked with city engineering to do so, so it has been reduced.
Can you show us the staff recommendation again, just for review, please? Okay.
I would make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation, but also add that they use brick and those walls be at minimum. I'm like, do we want to do a minimum or maximum? A maximum of 3 feet high
From grade.
Yeah, and that they align at the top.
And they align at the, and that's what they align at the top.
And they're continuous at the corners.
Yeah, and continuous at the corner. So the planters are brick and at least 3 feet high and continuous all the way around.
Wrap around.
Before you said
No more.
No more than 3, I'm sorry. No more than 3.
Okay.
But no less than 2. I don't know.
No more, no less than? Okay.
And then just real quick, Perry, when you were commenting before, was that intended to be a motion or just commentary?
No, I was just saying I would support the notion of a motion in this.
I think we should add the condition about the planting, evergreen planting.
Would that be encapsulated in the final landscaping section?
Yeah, I was just giving it
For best staff, but
parameters.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with including that.
Any more revisions? Okay,
I would second it.
we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I think Christina, you have to excuse.
I do, apologize, I've got a class that I teach this evening, so I apologize.
Thank you for staying on the late. We'll move on to 3547 Oswald Street, which is
So this case is for revisions to a multifamily building approved by the board. Do we need to wait for people to get out?
Can we get that one?
Tony is gonna recuse himself.
Let's see.
All right. So this case is for revisions to a multifamily building approved by the board in February 2024. That is part of the Arlington Downs mixed-use development on an 8-acre parcel in Lincoln Park. The building is divided into 3 sections: the south section with bay window forms, the north section with bay window forms, and the west section that connects them together. 6 elevations are shown here in side-by-side comparison for y'all later. The current case for the revised plans was postponed at the September 2025 meeting because the board did not have quorum to review it. The September staff report erroneously reviewed the revised plans against the original August 2023 plans, which were included in the packet, but this staff report and its case files correctly address changes from the plans approved in February 2024. We appreciate your patience with us during Lindsay's absence. The plans have been slightly revised since the September 2024 submission. We received public comments both for and against this development, which were sent to the board on Monday. The east elevation fronting Oswald Street here will be the most visible of the street, while the north and south elevations will also be highly visible. As seen in the master plan, the Oswald Street elevation will be a pedestrian access to the interior of the public development. Some of the major revisions involve realigning the driveway for the quote proposed future parking, a new site plan featuring a quote intermediate gravel drive and parking, the removal of a 3rd-story massing from the south section, the conversion of porches along Oswald Street for private patios, a new massing pattern for the central section, and the removal of pedestrian entrances. Guidelines recommend that parking should be at the rear of the building and access via single driveway from the street if no alley is available. The board previously approved the general location of the proposed future parking access from Oswald Street in February 2024. The driveway location in relation to Ryder Avenue has been corrected since last month with input from city engineering. Apart from the proposed access point off Oswald Street, staff recommends that the proposed future parking lot be approved as part of a future application, since design details are likely to change based on future submittals. The applicants are now proposing an intermediate gravel drive and parking, with parking behind the building and access via driveways off of Oswald Street and Colonial Avenue. While it is the intent of this parking area to be temporary, it has to be considered as if it is permanent, meeting all zoning standards, since there is no guarantee if or when it will be removed. The location is appropriate, but the 2 proposed entrances do not meet design guideline recommendations. However, the 2 entrances will allow for separate access points for future residents and construction vehicles and are set far apart, so they are appropriate in the opinion of staff. It should be noted that the sidewalk along Oswald Street is not required by city engineering, but if it is constructed, it must meet the city standards. The sidewalk is still depicted in the site plan, but it is not called out specifically to be constructed. The general landscaping has been reintroduced in the current plan set, showing the intent along the parking lot and internal to the site. Landscaping, including shade trees, should be introduced along the Oswald Street frontage as recommended by the guidelines. Guidelines recommend multifamily buildings have similar front yard space to that of traditional single-family homes along the street. The proposed front setback from Oswald Street is 8 inches to the patio and 2 feet 2 inches to the building for the left-south section. That's what's shown here. And 1 feet 1 inch to the porch and 6 feet 4 inches to the building for the right-north section. This is similar to the new 2-story houses that were constructed in 2022 that have setbacks of approximately 1 feet to porches and the main massing. The 2 traditional single-family houses on the block face down here are 1-story and have setbacks of approximately 6 inches and 9 feet to the front porch and 9 feet and 15 feet to the main massing. Guidelines recommend multifamily construction be similar in height and foundation height to the context. The removal of the 3rd-story massing reduces the overall height of the left-south section, but the facade height of the left and right sections have slightly increased due to an increase in foundation height. The proposed 3 foot 6 inch and 4 foot tall foundation heights on these sections are appropriate. Guidelines for multifamily buildings recommend, quote, dividing the building into separate sections that are proportionally similar to original houses on the block, and encourage, quote, new apartment buildings to be designed in context with the early architectural features of the neighborhood. This is primarily achieved via the bay window massings. The revisions to the central building massing, particularly along the Oswald Street elevation, create modules that are larger in scale than previously proposed. Additional brick detailing has been added to the foundation and parapets of the brick massings, which reflects the historic context. The conversion of all the front porches on the left-south massing to closed patios and the removal of the associated walkways is a significant revision that does not follow the guidelines. The front setback should be increased so that these elements can be reintroduced along with landscaping. The reduction of the number and size of pedestrian entrances on the central building massing makes the pedestrian amenities less visible and accessible from Oswald Street. The revised design of the central building massing on the alley facing west elevation provides transparency that activates the pedestrian openings and breaks the massing into smaller, varied modules, but these tactics are not employed on the street facing east elevation. The promenade and pedestrian openings are pedestrian entrances at the north of the overall development that provide internal public access to proposed commercial buildings. The board should discuss how the revisions impact the development's interaction with the public streetscape. Guidelines recommend that window and door styles be similar to historic houses on the block, with similar ratio of solid and void. The board approved the use of full light doors, single light casement windows, and single light fixed windows in 2024, since the last time they have converted some previous fixed windows to casement. The removal of the third story massing meets the guidelines. The revisions to the modules in the central building massing result in a different roof pattern that is generally similar to what was previously proposed and is compatible with its modern form. In terms of materials, brick veneer meets the design guidelines, but the guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding. The board approved the use of vertical siding on the central building massing in 2024, but the modifications to the module pattern on the east elevation make the material more visible from the right-of-way. The concrete block foundation on the central building massing should be screened by an exterior cladding material, hard-coated or clad in stucco. Final product specifications should be sent to staff for approval. Right. The board should discuss how the revisions along Oswald Street impact the development's interaction with the public streetscape, the intermediate gravel driving parking lot, and the driveway location on Oswald Street. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff is recommending approval of Certificate 9F25IH subject to the following conditions. The final site plan, parking areas, and elevation drawings to meet the standards of the IMU zone, Article 9.3I, and any applicable standards of the zoning code and building codes. City engineering approval of the intermediate gravel driving parking lot, its driveway access and proposed sidewalks. The proposed future parking lot to be approved as part of a future application. The front setbacks be increased to allow for the reintroduction of stairs and walkways from the porches to Oswald Street, with revisions to be approved by staff. The final site plan to incorporate required landscaping in the intermediate parking area and all elevations, including shade trees along Oswald Street, with final selection and placement to meet any applicable standards, including Article 12, and be sent to staff for approval. The brick detailing on the parapets, windows, and foundation to be retained. Final material specifications to be sent to staff for approval, with cladding on the concrete block foundation as necessary.
Thank you. The applicant present, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Logan Higgins, 133 South K Street. So this phase of the project, we, over the past couple of years, there's been some changes with the desire for how to do this phase, and then also some changes with the ownership of the property. So there's been some delays in getting to this point, but right now where we're at is two big changes that have happened, or well, the one big change is originally the building that we're looking at was designed as apartments styled essentially like townhouses to have the massing and the patterns of townhomes. Now we've converted the design to where it's truly townhouses. So all of these units have firewalls and are true townhomes, which that was the big thing that killed our breezeways through here, was having to have the firewall to meet the requirements for townhomes. So we're still able to do it on these sides because it's on the side of the units, but here it's in the middle of the unit, really anywhere we put the firewall there, it's essentially down the center, or splitting the unit. So that's really the big change. The other thing that's changed a little bit is I believe in our last, or in our first version of this, the stairs to these porches were encroaching into the right of way, the stoops were. And I'm, like you saw you've seen in other applications where there's a staircase coming from the sidewalk. In some cases that's allowed, but bringing a staircase into the right of way in an instance like this found would not be permitted by the city. And so we have kept the setback in line with the existing houses that are there, and just removed those stairs and put the stairs in the back. The other thing is the topography is, there was a note that I think that it's a little bit higher in the front here, and that is part of the change from the initial concept. Is once we got topography back from the surveyor, realized that the building had to be a little bit higher off, which also increased the number of stairs. So that's why the stairs are going, or are not there, and those are just porches with entrances in the back. And then with, I think it was number 4, I believe, the landscaping. Of course, we have to be compliant with the landscape standards. One reason we didn't get specifically detailed in this is we're looking at how the tree ordinance looking at the tree ordinance in relationship to the entire property. So we're meeting with Casey from the city to discuss that, and so we didn't include anything specifically here because there's still a little bit TBD, specifically with the trees. And then other landscaping will be coming into play with the promenade there that runs next to the building, and then of course this space in between the houses. But there's also some civil aspects to be determined that'll tell us what we can and can't put there. Lastly, the parking, if you don't care to go to the site plan with the temporary or intermediate parking. Yeah, it's fine. While these townhomes are being built, or shortly after they're done, this building is next in the queue. And so we want to make sure that we're not coming in with our driveway or our parking right here and then having to walk, these residents are having to walk through a construction site. So that's why we have the gravel parking back here. And I believe we had made a note, but we were thinking of it as one or the other of the 2 entrances, preferably this one if we can make everything work with engineering. That way all of this construction can happen without having to disrupt the parking over there. So totally understand, like it specifically says intermediate because we can't say this is temporary. We can't install temporary parking. It has to be assumed to be permanent. So intermediate in the sense that can be permanent, but ideally in the next year or so, it will be all moved to the other location. And we're completely fine with including that in future requests. So everything else I think is pretty clear, but the setbacks that we haven't changed. It was just, there were some changes in the information that we received. Thanks.
Thank you for that. We do have some other comments from the public on this one, and I think both of them that were submitted wanted to be here tonight, and so unless there are any objections, I'd like to just read these as though they were here. So I'm just reading these as they were sent to me word for word. The first one is from Michelle Ivester, who's the Oakwood Lincoln Park president. It has come to my attention that the proposed project has come before the design review board again today. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend this afternoon's meeting, however, I do still have concerns about the project. This project does not fit in with the existing neighborhood via both design as well as scale. The developer has also once again neglected to get input from the Oakwood Lincoln Park neighborhood, nor inform them of any design/project changes. The inference that the style matches the existing housing on the street is suspect, as the houses in question do not fit well into the surrounding neighborhood housing, and in our opinion should not be used for comparison purposes. Once again, we ask that the design review board please help Oakwood Lincoln Park maintain the streetscape at the heart of Knoxville and fill design guidelines adopted to help preserve the overall aesthetics of the Oakwood Lincoln Park neighborhood. Sincerely, Michelle Adams. Okay, the other one, the name has been redacted. I didn't receive it, so. To the design review board, my name is redacted name, and I live at redacted address, East Burwell Avenue. As a resident of Oakwood Lincoln Park, I have a vested interest in case file 9F25IH at 3547 Oswald Street, and I wanted to write a letter of support for the project in case I can't attend the meeting where it is discussed. I recognize that this committee discusses projects primarily from a design perspective, so I'll do my best to speak to those items directly, but I feel it's important to lend my support to the project from other aspects as well. The decisions this committee makes will have a direct impact on a project's ability to come to fruition, so I want to make sure that my full list of reasons for supporting the project is known. I'll be the first to admit that my eye for design is limited at best, but I appreciate the efforts put forth by the developer to match their design to the surrounding area. There aren't exactly a litany of 14-unit craftsman homes around, so finding directly comparable properties is impossible. This kind of density is largely missing on our side of town, with one or two exceptions closer to downtown, but I feel as though the project is doing everything it can to conform to the broader context in which it will exist. I recognize that it won't please every member of our neighborhood, but this type of housing is sorely needed in our community, and it seems as though though every reasonable effort has been made to thread the needle between the design standards and the scale of the project. The broader plan for green spaces and walking paths is also something our neighborhood sorely needs, and I'm appreciative that the developer has made the effort to retain and cultivate those spaces in this project. I also want to speak to this project as a real estate professional. To be clear, the developer and I do not have any sort of relationship, and my support is irrespective of any involvement in this project. Having said that, this is exactly what Knoxville needs. The residential real estate market in Knoxville is facing an inventory challenge, and that's largely due to lack of homes that are affordable for working class people. That's true for both rentals and purchasable homes. I have no clue what the price point will be, and I recognize that 14 units now won't solve an ongoing crisis. But it is a step in the right direction, and density of this type is, in my humble estimate, a massive lever for keeping Knoxville housing affordable. The laws of supply and demand dictate the more inventory will keep us from seeing the inordinate appreciation that our market experienced within the last 5 years. While it falls outside of the missing middle initiatives, the point of those programs was largely to find ways to create density where there wasn't previously an option. This is accomplishing the same goal, and it's creating future opportunities for small businesses, modest green spaces, and walking areas. To be frank, this project feels like a home run in terms of priorities for our neighborhood. To that end, I feel that if this project were to be stuck in committee in perpetuity, we would miss out on an opportunity to do something with this piece of land. If this isn't the type of project that's going to pass muster, what will? I have a hard time imagining anyone else stepping up to the plate to create something meaningful here, and our neighborhood will instead be left with a big patch of grass, the devil's as a mosquito farm. Finally, as a resident of the neighborhood, I am entirely for this project. I believe Oakwood Lincoln Park is one of the best neighborhoods in Knoxville, and this development allows more people to discover why. It also gives us access to walkable areas and green space, and future opportunities for local entrepreneurs. I look forward to walking with my kids through these neighborhoods one day. This land is currently unused, and it's not doing anyone any favors. Our residents may bring up concerns related to traffic and infrastructure, but those are always going to be tensions with expansion. My home is about a mile from this development, so I would likely feel any impacts on our local flow of traffic. I'd be happy to have a few more cars on the road if it means we are able to make the most of this plot of land and offer more spaces for more people to come and learn why OLP, Oakwood Lincoln Park, is the best part of Knoxville. As of now, we're looking at 14 units. On the scale of the larger population growth, our city is undergoing 3,000 people are expected to be added to the city this year per East Tennessee Realtors. That feels like a drop in the bucket. In my opinion, this project is exactly what our city and our neighborhood need, and I urge the committee to approve it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you hearing me out. My contact info is below, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have follow-up questions or would like more specific feedback. All the best. Redacted information. Okay, thank you for humoring me on that. I feel like both sides need to be heard. So with that, we will open it up to more discussion.
I think that let's talk a little bit about the Missing Middle Housing Initiative, and I think in the letter of support and just like the project as a whole, I do agree that the density is needed, but the whole spirit of why the city worked really hard to pass Missing Middle Housing was to think about how scaled, walkable density. The project could happen, should happen, has a lot of merit to it, but my biggest issue with it is just its lack of connection to the street. It's turned its back on the community and it's inward faced. That's really my biggest problem. If there was a connection actually to Oswald and actually to the neighborhood, and you're creating your own block, so I understand that there's a lot basically happening on the inside, and there's things honestly happening on the interior that I could care less to know about more than the street face. But that connection to the street's imperative, and really is the biggest problem I have with it and in the project right now. Less about really any other detail to it. It's the floating patios just would have a bad consequence, I think, to the street and neighborhood context.
I have a question related to that. What is the intended flow for residents from parking to their unit on the site? Can you walk us through that, please?
Yeah. So with the intermediate parking, there will be a walkway along the units here, and then also one that cuts through here and one over here. So these units will come around here, these units will be accessed through there, and then a path going through here to access these units. And these have doors directly to the promenade as well. I think these also, there are doors for these units on that side. They also have courtyard entrances so they could go either direction.
Can you take us to the larger site that shows the whole development?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this one? No, the big one. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so the overall concept here is one entrance coming in off of Oswald, parking. I'll start with the parking since we were already discussing that.
Yeah.
Essentially continuing a rider onto the property using double stacked parking like this so that we don't have a separate parking lot somewhere else on the site. This also turns and connects over to Huron Street on this end. And then on this end, it goes under that building over to Colonial Avenue with parking under this building. The idea for all of this is park down in this area, just public access park over there, townhouses and apartments on this space that are using more of the traditional patterns of townhomes. And then all of these are, these are expected to be apartments, over here, apartments, and then in the middle, there's been some tweaks to what you're seeing now, and potentially there may be parking underneath these buildings to allow for less surface parking. But the idea is that this middle area will be the mixed use portion, with the park over here kind of tied into that, and then also future mixed use over there.
Thank you. So all the images in our packet still show the stoops in the basement. So we have one elevation that shows them cut off and that they're just kind of floating now. So that's really essentially somebody's back porch now.
More or less in the renderings we have, I thought we had provided some updated ones, but
There's one.
The bottom right.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
And I do think that for the stairs, one idea that I meant to mention is we could inset in this porch so that you're coming up the stairs, you have a little landing and then you turn. It makes the porch smaller, but that keeps the face of this aligned with the houses next door. So that could be a solution that wouldn't require pushing the building back physically.
Is that your main hesitation, to push the building back and stay aligned?
Yeah, well, that and there are a lot of easements on this property that we're dancing around with the buildings. And I mean, for example, the right in between this and the next phase, this is a giant off-site stormwater easement carrying a lot of water through the property. Few other instances like that. And so moving things around is difficult with those easements. It starts chopping off other things. And so we initially wanted those to be aligned with the houses, and the property line curves. So those houses are actually coming out even further than what the townhouses are doing.
What edge of the so we were talking about the alignment with the new townhomes. It's the you're aligning the front main face, not the actual extrusion of like the townhomes. So they could push back slightly and still align, but just with a different edge to that, to the adjacent houses. And also a question about if the promenade, or if the stairs can't be in the right of way, how is the promenade stair allowed to exist? Is that still remaining?
It's just not in the right of way.
Okay, it can set back far enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because it's inset.
Forgive me if this has been just mentioned, but the sidewalk, what's the status of the sidewalk?
So, city doesn't require sidewalks. I certainly think that sidewalks need to be built here. I would say the time, my assumption is that the time to do sidewalks would be when we're doing this building. That way we can come across and do them all at once rather than chopping it up or building them and then tearing them up later. And then also when we're doing the curb cut and everything over there. The challenge is there's not sidewalks for
it doesn't exist anywhere.
Anywhere nearby. So it will be a little isolated. I hope that in the future more sidewalks will come into play, but I think that if voluntary, the sidewalk would be with that next phase.
How big is this site overall?
8 acres.
Even if you have a sidewalk around the perimeter of that, that's a pretty good walk.
And that's actually, if you go back to the master plan, that promenade, there's 2 features of it. And in this building, there's an easement actually deeded for a breezeway through this building. But what I'm getting at is there's a path that goes through and around the entire development and connects back over there. But the idea behind that is to connect Colonial, Oswald, and Huron all pedestrian in anticipation for future pedestrian flow through the site.
You mentioned the easements earlier. The one that we were really questioning would be a north-south easement that would not allow you to shift the buildings west. Is there an easement there? that's a
There's-
concern?
There's not one that's going directly that way. It's the turning of some of the easements, and then it's the ripple effect of
Sorry, I'm bringing up
You're
the
good.
plat.
moving one building over, and then the building behind that has to move over, and then the parking has to move over, et cetera, et
Which is
cetera.
like the first level massing of the site, right? And you're saying you didn't have topography till when? And these easements understood till when?
Easements were known, the topography came after we had done a lot of
You were
master
initially
planning.
planning it, you knew the easements and you knew the right of way originally or not?
We knew the right of way, like I said, we were hoping to, I think, do some stoops into the right of way, but then also had expected it to be lower to the, or closer in elevation, so we expected like 1 or 2 stairs to
What
get
are you
to
gonna
the.
do to be able to allow it to be in the right of way though? You're gonna ask for a variance?
Yeah, or like a
Permissive use agreement.
Permissive use agreement is still a plausible approach?
If you have more experience with those than Mark, but
No, it's an engineering thing, because it's out in the right of way, it's not
So
actually.
we never would have been able to happen that way.
Not through like zoning matters or variance process, it would strictly be through engineering and city council, more likely.
Yeah. I mean, the setback is the like silver bullet that I think would help. I mean, these buildings, are very urban, they're less, I guess, residential. And the more they can move back and have the stoop to allow that to happen is what's, like you keep showing that example of Fourth and Gill. Guess what Fourth and Gill has? A stoop and a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And on a street that I lived there on Deary Street, just in front of those for 5 years. And that's why it was great, because you can walk in front of it. And that's what, if you all are creating like a new community context that no, it isn't exactly like everything around it, but it is comparable to the older cities in Knoxville or towns, areas in Knoxville. It can be that, and it's almost there. It's just those kind of big moves are what's going to do it. And I think the back door, the back porch is just not going to. It just isn't going to work. It can't. I think it could be really special with it having those stoops if that can be made to work, and that. Yeah, the domino effect is it's going to eat into the master plan, but that is at the benefit of the entirety of that street face to be that much better.
No, I think it makes the extra massing work.
Yep.
You know, it really does.
There's a precedent for this, it's not in the infill overlay, but in South Knoxville on Sevier Avenue where the new development is across from the school. There are little tacked on side porches on that building, and it is a pedestrian way and it has a brand new sidewalk, and that's great and it's connected. But it still feels like you're looking into somebody's back living room area.
Back.
Yeah. And so I think the stoops make all the difference.
I think those are really good points, and so my request would maybe be, if possible, and I think maybe this was what the staff recommendation might have said, was, if we can allow that to be, if we can place those stoops and get staff approval with that, I think, like, the point is, I completely agree, like, it really does set a bad precedent for how this addresses the street if we don't have those stoops. So I think we do need to figure that out, and if that's moving them back, the whole building back a couple feet, or maybe shortening the units, I think it's worth figuring out a solution to that.
You had mentioned one possibility of, since your problem was your stair and approach to the stoop was going out into the right of way, you suggested turning them parallel to the building to where you come under, put the stoop back on, but the stair is under it, rather than porch part. And that would get us direct connection to the sidewalk on Oswald that will happen eventually, we hope, and be less of a back door than the current situation, especially with the elevated decks there or patios.
Is that what you did on the 2-story townhome? That's to the north of the property?
over, yeah, so this one is turned parallel with the street.
Yeah.
Over on that side, yeah.
And the question would be, is it's parallel to the street, but then what is it, a yard? Do they have a front mailbox on the street? Like, how does it start to really kind of speak that I'm a unit? I'm welcoming, I'm still not kind of turning my shoulder at you at that point. Are these going to have like cluster boxes? Are they going to have front mailbox that get delivered? Is there extension to the street? Like a sidewalk, out to the street, anything like that from the unit itself?
Yeah, so on that one, where it's parallel, that does tie into a sidewalk that will connect to the future sidewalk. So it goes right there, and it's not like turning necessarily, it's just kind of running parallel to the street.
I think again, I've seen some really nice projects from firms in like Philadelphia and things like that have the turn staircase because it's in a purely urban context, and it makes sense because people can still hang out on it and it doesn't extend the stoop out to the street. But I think here that though that is a potential avenue, I think that it still wants to read like, here's our welcoming front porch to the street. It'd still be better to have it front facing at the unit. And it's going to create that rhythm that you've already started with the other homes to have that.
I think that this development is big enough that it's creating its own context in a lot of ways, and the images reflect that, but there is still a whole neighborhood around it that is a much smaller scale, and I think balancing a lot higher density and a big development on the site, which I think overall is a good thing, a lot more consideration needs to be made with how to weave it into the context of the neighborhood. I'm saying that to support what Cameron's suggesting, that the stoops need to feel like porches, like the rest of the streets have porches.
I mean, back to my question, are they going to have mailboxes?
We'll have to figure that out with the USPS.
Also, USPS does not allow individual mailboxes anymore. It's all clustered. Even with subdivisions these days, with single family houses, it's all clustered.
I mean, but if these are townhomes,
it's still going to be clustered.
I'm working on a townhome project now in Arkansas that's allowing it to have the mailboxes for that purely that reason, so it has like the residential approach to it. So that's a miss for sure.
They might allow the individual here because they did allow the porch boxes on the 3 houses.
Right.
I think as we get into future phases, they're going to want those to be in a central location. But it would be hard for us to put a mail room, right here for the whole thing. So I think it'll still be kind of spaced out a little bit. So I think there's a chance that these might have individual mailboxes.
But at least on the facades or the units that face Oswald, Huron, and whatever the other one is. Yeah. I think that's important to keep the context of the neighborhood similar, to have the mailboxes in the entries whenever possible.
This is more of a comment than anything. I don't know, it's just the thing that keeps popping up in my head. But the adjacent houses, they have a driveway, and we're asking for the to retain the soups. But the one thing that they wouldn't have is that parking immediately in front. And I think Oswald is a pretty narrow street. So from a neighborhood standpoint, I do think the stoop on the front would encourage people to park in the front. We can't necessarily control that, but people park on Central and Jackson Avenue downtown, and there's definitely, you shouldn't park there with your hazards on for 3 hours, but people do it. So I don't know, that's just one thing that comes to mind for me is, I do see the benefit of activating those with the stoops and connecting them to the neighborhood, but on the flip side of that, I also think it would encourage people to park in front of them, which could create like a, in the neighborhood, people being kind of frustrated with that.
I think the street is too narrow for someone to even imagine parking in front of it.
Yeah, because if you I pulled up like the 360 on KGIS photometry, and there are, I don't know if it's temporary, but it looks like a car is parked on the street right there in front of it.
Yeah, there's cars parking in front of the houses currently already. There's a police officer that lives there that he always parks his car in front of it.
Parallel.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I can see on the pictometry.
I have a question about related to that, about the plan. Forgive me for not knowing this. the stoop that we're talking about, what room does that open into? Is that
The-
public?
Yeah, it's the living room.
So I think the suggestion is that we still want to see the stoop to provide that pedestrian feel on that edge, but I don't think the intention is that that would be the occupant's primary entry and exit point.
Probably not, but I think I understand the long-term benefit of it.
I can think you like hear you like if you're writing like the story of this is like though ultimately entered from the central whatever inside the site, the architect made painstaking decisions to connect to the existing context with stoops to rectify the inward focus of the project. I mean, if we get past even the siding and the kind of massing of the buildings, I mean, we keep talking about the brick. Like this isn't brick, it's gonna be thin brick, right?
I think this will be regular brick. Last time when we talked about the thin brick, I think you made some good points and we decided to just switch it to regular brick.
Well, the reason being is that the details that the staff is asking to come back can only be achieved with full depth brick for the fact that if you don't have an air cabinet, you're not gonna get a brick sill or you could do like an imitation like soldier course over the head, but you're not gonna get any depth in the reading. So that's good news then. So that's something that would be very helpful for the articulation of it, which will make it look more like a precedent on enforcing it.
When we get the stoops and Oswald doors back, it gives the trick-or-treaters a place to come knock.
Good point.
The windows, I mean, so you had changed a lot to fixed. Was that as a VE moment or what?
No, I believe that I didn't think that we actually.
This new design from what they submitted last month contains more casement windows for sure. It also does overall contain more casement windows than what was approved in August 2024.
Okay.
Again, the previous staff report was working with slightly outdated plans, sorry guys. And in that instance, they had replaced them. But relative to what was approved, there are more casement than fixed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given the overall development's going to be more modern, as you enter into the site, like it's almost like a nod to like this isn't purely contextual. It is starting to transition to a more modern design on the interior. Like that's why I think we were okay with the larger casements before, the tilt turns that you have on the houses, the framed houses next to it. So I don't really have an issue with the expansive glass, especially if they're casement because that's more energy efficient than a double hung or single hung. So what's keeping us from shifting it to make this do?
I think with the staff recommendation, it's included for us to do that. So I guess the only thing that comes to mind for me is if it could inset into the porch, we maybe split the difference. So we have the porch as it is, but instead of moving it back 8 feet to be able to get steps in the front, we probably would want to inset the steps into the porch somewhat. So I don't know, I'm sure it probably will be some increase at the front setback, but I think that the stoop will still need to inset into the porch. Like I said, with the landscaping, there's kind of other aspects with that, but with the front setback, you mentioned the adjacent houses porch versus front, and on that I will point out that kind of following both. You go to the
Sorry.
okay.
Which one?
One of the houses next to it. I'll just point that out. Oh yeah. So the main wall of these townhouses is aligned with the main walls of these. The bays come out further, but on this house, the porch comes out. This one, the second floor comes out to that same frontage. And on this one, there's essentially a bay with a side porch. So that massing line is pretty consistent as it is. And so that's kind of part of why I don't think pushing it back only pushing it back is the best solution, because it will, we're talking like, I think a 4 foot difference in height. I think it will be somewhat significant. So I would rather inset into the porch with that.
Do you have room on the porch to inset? Because they look pretty narrow right now.
Yeah, I think we do. I don't know the dimension of that right off, but that's part of what I'm thinking of. Like, maybe we have to move it back a foot or two, but then just to give us room for the steps and the landing.
And could that be the living room wall and not the whole development, or you wouldn't want to?
Potentially, yes.
You wouldn't want to
Yeah.
lose the square footage on the conditioned space.
Maybe, because there may be a justification to do that versus affecting what's behind it. There's a lot of owners and partners and stakeholders and all of this, so I need to think through what the best way to go about that would be. But it may be better to pull this back a foot or two versus the entire structure.
And just for our education, how much into the easement are the stoops? Is it really close? Or not the easement, but the right of way.
Yeah, they're less than a foot,
Yeah. Okay.
but that's with the overhang. So the porch itself actually may be pulled back a little bit further.
I would argue that your argument about the alignments and plan, I mean, in elevation, the townhomes are elevated feet, like because of the site. I know there's a lot of gain in height back to the elevation, back to the railroad track. So I'm sure that was a big side move, is to elevate that to be able to get the consistency and the drives back to it. But I would still argue that that entire chunk shifting back would help with the breaking down of the scale of those overall, not just insetting the porch and stoop a little bit.
I think also the way that you have it rendered, you're showing brick on the side, which gives it a certain heaviness and weight to it that counts as more than a porch almost.
Yep, as an edge.
And I forget how much longer you're going to go with the next phase, but again, you have a chance to do it right that time with the next one, which will sort of take those 3 houses and I don't know.
Would you care to pull up the rendering? So we're on the same page.
I'm sorry, the rendering, this rendering or of the master plan?
It's on the.
Okay.
So it's the very front of
The very front
of his packet.
Cover sheet. Logan, I'll applaud you for making the original houses such very front conditions that you're able to choose from one of those that how it suits the rest of the
So
building.
it's not this one, it's one before it, or maybe after.
This is the first
Right after it
page.
then. It's in the back.
It may have been the original cover sheet.
The one with the stoops.
Here,
Okay.
yeah.
The original cover sheet all the way back.
It is the original cover sheet, but it's in this packet somewhere. There it is.
And also just
Yeah.
quickly for reference, we did some quick math, and if the porch steps were at the edge of what they have now, it would need to be pushed back about 6.5 feet to have enough space for the steps required.
So you mean like a 4 foot height?
Yeah.
I think what we would prefer to do, if possible, is essentially have this, but push back a little bit, inset a little bit more into the porch, but still do these side pieces so that you do have that element coming out. And I think with that also gives us a few feet or a couple feet through here to do some landscaping in between those and kind of frame it. Again, pushing back 6 feet, I do think would be a little bit more substantial than could have some big impacts. So I'm hoping to avoid that amount, but I think that if we can inset it at least somewhat into those porches, we can make that work.
A combination of things. You move your living room wall back, you scoot the building a little, you turn the stair a little, and use the combination of all these things, maybe 2 feet of each.
Yeah.
to achieve it. So basically what it looks like we're trying to achieve a specific goal, which is to reactivate Oswald and to get the stoop entry back. to the front sidewalk, and there's a combination of ways to achieve it. That sounds like he's going to have to start pushing it around on the drawing board to see which one works.
Was it intentional to not have any humans in any of your drawings?
I think our other renderings do have humans. This is a very early rendering.
Just think of that view right there. I'd want to see a 6-foot person walking down the sidewalk and see what it felt like. I guess for now it's a person walking on the street because that's the only way you can walk down Oswald. I mean, like right now, the houses that are there, they look unfinished without the sidewalk. There's something about them, and there's something about the scale of them, and like, yes, they have a front entry driveway, but like it's screaming that it wants to have a sidewalk to connect those, and they just don't look completed. So then when this gets built, and then 4 years later, the next, or whatever, sorry, you don't want 4 years later, a year later, the next phase comes in, it's gonna really be lacking for a long time, and it just like, that's the reaction, that's the adverse reaction you're also getting from the community as they drive past it every day, and they're like, man, I mean, the field itself, it's whatever, it's a big open grass field, it's overgrown, whatever, but like the houses themselves, there's like, still kind of like play and doesn't really look done. That's also what concerns me about the gravel a lot. Like I'm just seeing gravel spilled all over the sidewalk during construction, or sorry, the roads and that sort of thing. So I think it's the phasing's not helping it. I think I agree with you that the sidewalk can't be piecemealed, but I also would think that though not required, it should be, and our neighborhoods in Oakwood, Lincoln Park desperately need sidewalks. We have sidewalks that are just buried under cars right now because people are parking on them and destroying them.
Sidewalk can be piecemeal all over Knoxville.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially because these are going to be sold units now, right, rather than rentals, that if you're investing in brand new construction and what the expense that comes with that you would want to be ensured that there's a sidewalk coming, a continuous sidewalk, and that they're buying into this development and not just their one unit, and that it's a sale point to say that there are sidewalks in this community and it's a priority.
And sidewalks be in the right of way?
Yes.
Because then they can tear into it if they have to dig in. Yeah. Okay.
On this idea of intermediate parking, you said two things, Logan. One, you said over the last couple of years, and then you said changes in ownership. And so that's one of the things that raises red flags for me about the intermediate parking and no sidewalk. The no sidewalk scares me more than the intermediate parking. Just because, let's say the project does fizzle out, worst thing happens, and you get phase 1 and 2 built, and there's no sidewalks, and it still looks like those 3 sitting there. But if there's intermediate parking that's behind, I don't know. That's just a thought.
Just so everybody understands, so for the gravel driveways, for instance, worry about gravel kicking out into the road, they would be required to do a certain amount of concrete driveway apron.
Yeah.
So that'll help with that part of it. Sidewalks can be in the public right of way, it has to be built to city standard. Indication is that there'd be a requirement for curb to be installed and then the sidewalk behind, so there's wouldn't necessarily be the gap of sidewalk you've seen in the plan without the curb. That would be the initial expectation. There could be some creativity in allowing disconnected sidewalk, but city engineering is concerned that it would just end up being people parking in the grassy area.
Gotcha.
So the engineering preference or requirement is that the sidewalk is connected to the street and curb.
Well, yeah, the typical is a curved 2-foot grass strip and a 5-foot sidewalk.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some variability in how that gets designed in the end, but that's the typical.
Some of the best streets in Oakwood, Lincoln Park, one is just past the Lincoln Park Trade School, is Chickamauga on the east end of it, because someone went rogue and planted like 50 trees in the 2-foot strip, and they're about 12 feet tall now, and it's like probably the quintessential view of Oakwood, Lincoln Park, Lincoln Park. And that would be wonderful if there was that street, grass strip, sidewalk. I mean, we're speculating, this isn't even part of the project, but we're just saying why it should be.
One of the things that I think Logan commented on at one point was doing one of the driveways versus the other. Is there, I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Well, if you can come off a Colonial, that really hides the entrance. Cause it's a dead end back toward the railroad track and it wouldn't, not much traffic. So it's like Mike's saying, there are things that stop your gravel from getting out the road. And during construction, if we don't have the Oswald Street sidewalk over here, the construction traffic would be coming going out of that one, which would be better for the neighborhood. But like Logan's saying, we're really working with engineering to see which way can this happen. So.
Yeah. And to your point, the Colonial entrance is sloped just a little bit, so that will help keep the gravel
in.
Yeah, and that's our preference for sure. I really don't want to do anything over there or do that entrance over there until the driveway is actually being planned. And that's why I say with this sidewalk, engineering is going to require for that entrance over there, curb aprons, a right only curb right here. And I think with all of that, it's a lot easier to plan out the implementation of the sidewalk angles and tying all that in. There's also some infrastructure work that will have to happen here with the stormwater, and I just don't know if that happens. Civil's still developing the details of that. I don't know if that will happen on the front end or not. So there's just a few things that I think make it a little harder to do the sidewalks now, but I do think could be would be done with the future building. But also if I don't know if it's a condition or if that's allowed to make it a condition of approval. I think that it can be required.
I think at bare minimum, the rough grading needs to reflect that there's going to be a sidewalk there and that it's not just a slope up from the street, so that the table is set that there's definitely going to be a sidewalk in the future.
The letter of support that was redacted was really emphatic about this bringing density and housing that's desperately needed. What one of the mentions was workforce housing. Is there, you mentioned all your stakeholders and everybody involved in it. What's the actual model for the performa to sell these?
These are expected to be sold as individual units. The townhouses are. The next couple of phases are apartments. I think the building here is 21 units, and then back here we're looking at around 40 units. Those I think will probably be rental. And then for the future phases, there are some conversations about doing potential workforce housing with those other phases, because those will be much higher density or more units at least.
There's also the mixed income development. I guess I just want to make it clear, we're not, any sort of critique that our board gives to housing development isn't anti-housing. Anything, we're pro-housing. So the argument that we're stifling workforce housing development is factually incorrect. We just want contextually driven housing to be here.
My assumption is that this building was identified as the next step because it's smaller than the other ones and in line with the things that already exist.
Yeah, and kind of working out from the initial houses.
Okay. We have had a lot of discussion. Let's try to rein it in a little bit. Can we look at the recommendation? Okay, for everyone's review.
Really, if we approve this as is, the number 4 is a pretty crux condition. That's saying move it further back.
Well, and could we amend that to say that the building design can change to allow for the reintroduction of stairs and
I think it's like staff approval at that point is what gives me pause. I want to see it. Yeah, how different it will be.
Would
Would we be able to include anything about including a sidewalk or no?
So I struggle, the infill housing design guidelines do not address sidewalks. And these are the things that we're working out from. And if it's something that's not a city engineering requirement, I struggle to think about it being within our purview, particularly if we would be asking them to build something within the right of way. Again, if y'all want to mention something about the grading, maybe that would be more appropriate.
We had a project meeting with the applicant not too long ago, and one of the engineering comments was about right-of-way improvements. They said they're not required, that they can provide them if they want. It would either be a 5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot landscape bed or a full 7-foot sidewalk. And then the curb would be required anywhere a sidewalk is proposed.
I think also it will require maybe shifting the paved part of the road over. So there's a little bit more big picture civil planning that is needed for.
That's part of your work, or that's part of?
There's a civil engineer on board, so right now they're focused on stormwater, but the planning of the roads and sidewalks will be next.
On Oswald?
Both on the development and how it connects to Oswald, which would also be the sidewalk on Oswald.
No, we're trying to get to a resolution, a recommendation, but the vertical siding hasn't been talked about. It's gonna be exposed for some time on the, I guess, plan south. What's that material supposed to be, Logan?
We, I think, had planned for
The plans say metal panel or fiber cement, which is what was also said the last time.
Vertical.
And that's what was already approved.
Yeah, it was also metal panel or fiber cement. The main change is just now that the material is going to be a lot more visible, particularly along the
behind the
as opposed to
existing
last time, it would have been this smooth finish material that would have been visible between the houses.
high density fiber was what I was looking for, so it's different than like hardy board. We're looking for more of the stone type.
This is just a general comment, but and your thoughts. The middle balconies that are directly behind the middle house, did you think about flipping that to the other side of the structure so that they're not looking down into the backyard of the middle house?
That was the original plans featured that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the existing houses too, something to note, they do have fence, at least 2 of them have fences, it looks like, in between them.
Yeah, so this would be above the fence line.
Right. I'm just saying it would, the fence would potentially block some of
And this is more of a question comment than anything.
Yeah. I want to say we may have kept them back there so that there was that articulation, because I think that our last version may have had side porches or porches in the back coming from the side, so it doesn't show up in that rear elevation. Maybe not, it may have just been a lower roof, but point being, by switching these to townhouses, it changed a lot inside of them, and to maintain this like rear articulation so that it wasn't just like one solid wall, we put the porches in the back.
The back, when you say the back, it's on the walls, Oswald side.
Yes, I'm sorry, but it's like
Yeah.
the backs of the units.
Well,
The units really face the pedestrian plaza in front, or, I don't know.
Well, I'll say this. I don't want to impede the development. I want to support the development. I know you've done a lot of work. There have been a lot of big revisions. I do agree with Cameron that enough changes have to happen to what this facade on the Oswald side is doing that I don't think it can be a staff recommendation.
I think we would be okay with postponing to do that.
Would you have a preference on how long it's postponed?
Just 30 days.
30 days, yeah. I would make a motion then to postpone for 30 days.
And comment being to iron out number 4, come back with changes specific to that.
Yes, and it would be helpful to know what the sidewalk condition is gonna be in the minds of the developers and the people paying for the project. We can't require it, but there is a strong preference to have the sidewalks, and so I would just convey that to them.
I'll also say that I personally, and the rest of the board can say otherwise, and I know that like we'll have to vote on an option, but I don't think there's anything wrong with coming with options. I work in options all day long and I never show one idea to a client, and I think that if you're like, actually these two were 2 ways that we could address this, and we can go on the book saying option 1A or whatever is the submitted, if we're approving or not when you come back. I just would hate for us to, you have more than one idea and you only just do one because that's what it is, but it'd allow us to be able to have a conversation like we're doing today and have a design discussion. If anybody else agrees or disagrees. You disagree?
I have a strong preference against that.
Okay.
Just not from a design side, I think a design discussion about this will be very useful and enriching. But I think from the board discussion perspective and just getting a clear path forward and consensus, I think that you need to take all of the comments that you've heard and synthesize them in the way that you feel is balancing all the things that you have to balance and make a recommendation to us about your clear path forward, and then we get to be on board with you or not based on our concerns and the clarity of your direction.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm glad you said that because it reminded me of something I thought of earlier. Would you care to go back to the elevations? And would like to get some feedback on this before we. Maybe to the drawing.
The Oswald Street. Is there a specific elevation?
Well, okay, so actually this is perfect. And then we can go to the next one. So I just noticed a while ago that these double porches are left over from when this was apartments, and I think in the townhouse version that just got redrawn, and sitting there looking at it, I realized that really shouldn't be. Those are bedrooms up there. On the other elevation, we just have porch down here and a roof, no second porch. And that's more in line with like those, like the Fourth and Gill ones. So
it's better, I think.
Okay,
than the
great.
upper balcony, yeah.
Cool.
I think it's really foreign to the neighborhood. I think it's better to have just the porch.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great that they're townhouses, and I think the rhythm of the townhouse for the street is great for the street, and so I think my thought is that if you can bring the rhythm of those townhouses all the way through the bottom floor, the landscape edge, the sidewalk if we get one, all the way out and just create that rhythm along every plane, I think would be really helpful. I think part of the proposal right now, this one where the stoops are gone, is that you see that strip and it seems like it doesn't belong on the street with the sidewalk. It's removed just enough to where you don't feel like that rhythm is part of the street. It doesn't belong there.
To that point, I would voice my support for front-facing stoops. I really think that is going to get more of that townhouse look versus like a parallel step. If that can be achieved, I think that would be easier to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone for 30 days. Final call for final comments. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries. We're postponing 30 days. And we're not done yet. 2 more. 700 East Springdale Avenue, number 9E, 25 IH. And can somebody get Tony, please? He's still here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that,
Performance side setbacks. No revisions were submitted before the staff report was posted. The addition will be highly visible from East Springdale Avenue, since the adjacent lot is unbuildable, and from West Glenwood Avenue, the side street. It meets design guidelines for placement, scale, roof material, and transparency. The addition will reduce the existing the existing side setback to 4 foot 1 inch, and the other side of the house features a 1 foot 1 inch side setback. The RN2 zone requires a 5 foot minimum interior side setback, and the combined side setbacks must be at least 15 feet. A variance for both the minimum and combined side setback would be required to approve the site plan. The Design Review Board has the authority to issue variances via a certificate of appropriateness, quote, in order to realize the principles associated with the guidelines, end quote. The board previously expressed ambivalence about the side setback variance. The building's massing and placement are largely determined by the required riparian buffer zone of the creek, which runs through the abutting vacant lot. With its current design, the addition would need to be made to the front of the house to avoid the creek and the side setback variance, which would not meet the design guidelines. The design guidelines recommend that, quote, side yard setback should be similar to older houses on the block, quote, and most of the houses along the block and surrounding area feature small side setbacks that do not meet the standards of the code. In the opinion of staff, a side setback variance for an addition on the house would follow, quote, the principles associated with the guidelines if the design of the addition also met the guidelines, but the current plans would need to be revised to be more compatible with the house to meet the design guidelines. The wood slab skirting is an appropriate finish for the block foundation, but is higher than the existing foundation line. The skirting height should be revised to match the foundation height of the house. Although guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding, in the opinion of staff, the vertical siding is appropriate since it is a secondary siding material and distinguishes the addition from the existing house. The addition will feature a shed roof sloped in the opposing direction of the existing roof planes. Guidelines recommend that roof lines of additions complement the existing house and feature a similar pitch and complexity to historic houses on the block. While the opposing planes of the existing roof in the addition could be compatible with a more modern or contemporary house, form is incompatible with the minimal traditional house and is not found on other houses in the block or nearby streets, and it will be the most visible element from the right-of-way. Alternative roof forms that would be compatible with the house are feasible. In the opinion of staff, the roof form should be revised to a shed gable or flat roof to be compatible with the existing house, to be approved by staff, along with any revisions to the elevation drawings and site plan as necessary. The board should discuss the side setback variance, vertical siding, and the proposed roof form. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff is recommending approval of Certificate 9E25IH, subject to the following conditions. The roof form be revised to a shed, gable, or flat roof to be more compatible with the existing house, to be approved by staff, along with revisions to the elevation drawings and site plan as necessary. And 2, the height of the wood skirting to match the foundation height of the house. It should be noted that the applicant sent over revised plans earlier today, which can be seen here. Notably, they reduced the depth of this side projection by 1 foot, which results in a 5 foot 1 inch side setback. This meets the standards of the RN2 zone, but a variance via COA would still be necessary because the combined side setbacks are less than 15 feet. The proposed wood composite vertical siding has been replaced with vinyl lap siding. If the board prefers this version of the plans, additional conditions should be added that address the siding and the side setback.
All right, so.
Just for protocol, name and address, please.
Yes. Logan Higgins, 133 South Gate Street. So this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with 2 adults, 2 kids, another one on the way. The scope of work is to add a bedroom and a bathroom to the back of the house as cost effectively and least intrusively as possible, with the least amount of disruption. And not doing construction work like connecting into the roof and whatnot. So just a quick summary, the constraints that have led to what we're working with here. It was mentioned the creek buffer, the RBZ, cuts really close to the house here and causes us to have to stack. And really, this is as small as we could make it. We got rid of the closet to respond to that setback concern, and then also even like the bathroom, very small bathroom, smaller than normal. And then the desire for and the need for a essentially structurally independent addition that isn't going into the roof and attic and making a lot of changes up there. So last month we had a lot of discussion about this, and another thing for those who weren't here and a reminder, this is a dead-end street, one of the few dead-end streets in the neighborhood, and also the vacant lot next to it, because of the creek, is essentially buildable, but because of that, it is growing up and will, I think, unless something drastic comes through, at some point this will not be visible from the right of way. A good example this is from street view. This tree, and there's another one next to it, in the current view of this would be out of frame of this photo. So this being vacant next to it, yes, that may mean there won't be a house there at some point, but it also means that it'll be significantly blocked. But in response to that conversation, we did, like I said, pull off the setback on the side setback. I understand that overall is still in consideration. The house itself is not compliant with that. And then also change the siding. The idea with the siding is that there's Dutch lap siding under the existing vinyl. The goal is to remove the vinyl and have the whole house be the original wood siding. If it's too rotted, then the vinyl would stay and the addition would get hardy board siding that meets same profile size as the vinyl that's existing. So not doing vinyl on the addition itself. We chose this roof form because we do think it's compatible with the house. It allows the house to open up towards the tall trees and the creek that are in the backyard. It uses a similar porch or a pitch to the original house, maintains a similar scale of the house without conflicting with the existing gable or shed. This small shed back here is a very big part of the back of the house. Stepping the footprint with a creek buffer means that we do have this irregular shape that's going up, and with different roof forms that can be difficult to make look right. With this, we can kind of just step it as we need. And then, I think if there's one thing consistent in the neighborhood with the minimal traditional houses, it's that they all are unique and all have differences to them that are not matching what the one next to it is, even though they're all very similar in style or maybe even use the same base footprint. All that said, I think the important thing is what do the guidelines say? And would you care to pull up the sheet, the page in the guidelines in the PDF? I think it's page 18 for additions. When it comes to additions, the guidelines have a page specifically for that. The guidelines treat additions the guidelines treat additions in relationship to the house that they're adding on to, not in relationship to the surrounding context necessarily. Of course, by complying with this, you are by extension complying with the surrounding context by not being out of scale. But looking at additions themselves, there's nothing in the guidelines that are specifically saying that they have to copy or match anything else that is in the neighborhood. They talks about specifically in relationship to the existing house. Specifically for roofs, it says the roof line and roofing materials should complement the original house. The city's definition of roof line is the highest edge or the top edge of the roof. So specifically saying the top edge of the roof is complements the original house. There's no mention of style, form, or shape with additions or with the roofs. Doesn't say to match or copy, like I said. There's an illustration included which shows a large mass in the front that kind of dwarfs the house, has the same roof structure as that, but it's showing that because of the scale of that, the height and the placement, it is not compliant or complementary to the existing house. In other words, the scale, height, and location are what the guidelines care about for additions to houses, specifically in relationship to that house, not shape, style, or form. So I think the question is this what we proposed compatible? It is proportional to the existing house, uses a similar pitch and roof size of the original house, even though it is only half of the gable. It's not taller than the original house, and it's in the back of the original house where additions are supposed to go. So even though, yes, there may not be direct context or precedent for this form anywhere else in the neighborhood, I do think that it complements it by following the guidelines and not dwarfing it in scale or being, detracting from the house itself. The primary view in the front is still very strongly the minimal traditional, and I think with the adjustment of the siding, there was some talk last month of, the roof form is unique, the encroachment is here, the siding is unique, and I think that's a really good point, that if we're going to step out a little bit, narrowing that down to specific items, and the slats should be brought down to be in line. That would be siding. The siding would be aligned at the base. Anyways, that's a mistake from the drawing software. So yeah, I think that although it's not what you would typically see as a rear addition, I do think that it complements the house and is compliant with the guidelines. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll open it up to discussion. Unless anybody feels strongly otherwise, I think the three main components that we need to talk about are the siding, the roof pitch, and the setbacks. And I appreciate that those revisions have been made. I'm not sure if making the building 1 foot smaller overall is a huge difference to us one way or another. I'll let everybody speak for themselves, but we still need to approve the setbacks in any case. I think, prefer to give you a foot in such a small addition.
Plus, I was about to say was I'd rather just see the closet go back. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I appreciate that you went with the horizontal siding, like you reiterated things we said, is like every bag of trick is being used if you just limit one of the variables, it makes it more palatable. I agree, like if you squint your eyes and see the 612 pitch or whatever that is from both the roofs, you can even almost see your eye completing the other gable down the other side if you're able to at the rear. It's obviously speaking, I'm different from the house. It'll be seen, but I don't really have a huge problem with it as is. It's a result of its constraints, that's for sure. I'm sure if you did this without a riparian buffer, you wouldn't have all these jogs and oddities in it.
I also don't think that it detracts from the overall character of the neighborhood. It's not shouting that it's different, and it's not a disruption to other things in the neighborhood, in my opinion.
The scale fits the original house nicely. Is it true that the guidelines don't specify form of roof? I did double check that before this.
The guidelines just say that the roof line needs to complement the existing house, which is generally interpreted as the roof form itself complementing that, since it contributes to the roof line.
I think it helps this house that it is in such a hidden pocket of that neighborhood. The site lends itself to a place where you could be a little bit more out of character with the rest of the development because it's much less than lower profile site.
Yeah, and it's more successful because, I mean, again, going from vertical to horizontal, it's gonna be different, but it still reads at that horizontal nature of it rather than also sticking out with the vertical siding, so.
What's the staff recommendations on this?
I do want to remind y'all the staff recommendations written before those plans. They were
before you
sent
got
to me
this-
today,
the
so
change.
they don't address. If you want, again, y'all are voting on the version of the plans that was included in the case file. So if you want them to have vinyl siding, you need to add that as a condition. If you want the side setback to be reduced, to be increased like it was in this revised design, you should add a condition related to that.
So we need to add conditions for anything that relates to the new plan that they sent.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Just to clarify, Logan was saying it'd be horizontal fiber cement or fiber soil.
Yeah. Fiber cement or wood if the existing wood siding is usable.
Some sort of lap siding.
I will note that typically we discourage Dutch lap siding. That's something that is specifically called out in the design guidelines, I believe. Again, that is for new construction.
Yeah.
They just say exterior cladding material should complement the existing house. The design guidelines don't prohibit any certain type of like vinyl or hardy. They don't have any.
Many of these houses originally have the Dutch lap.
Yeah,
Dutch lap.
Exactly.
I would like to revisit this as a board because we get this a lot. I see Dutch lap siding all over the neighborhood. That's historic wood Dutch lap siding that looks great in my opinion.
Remind me which is the Dutch lap? Like that's not just standard lap, is it? Is
Yeah,
it
it's not. Basically, it's not slanted.
It's undercut.
It's a vertical on the front, and then it's cut to pocket into.
Oh yeah, with like a reveal.
Yes. I think the main intent with the infill housing design guidelines was to discourage that type of vinyl Dutch lap siding where it's one flush panel and it goes and does that as opposed to actually having an overlap.
Right.
That's the typical that you can see.
Yeah, and that's what people are typically proposing with vinyl lap siding on new construction, but again, on the actual historic houses, I think the guidelines have some caveats and that apply to certain neighborhoods that were, where most of the development was after 1950, which this neighborhood is one of those parts of the area.
Perry would know this better than me, but I think the reason for that is that vinyl siding almost predominantly had Dutch lap profile when these guidelines were written, and that
It was
the
the most
regular lap
commonly
siding
used,
in
yeah.
the vinyl profile wasn't available then. So we see more diversity now than we do. So before, when we saw Dutch lap siding, it was almost assumed that it's like a cheap vinyl product and not a nice historic version.
Gotcha.
Well,
So maybe it needs to clarify vinyl Dutch lap siding. Well, back to this. I, as someone who lives literally a block and a half from this, I don't think it detracts from the neighborhood at all. I think, for all the reasons that you've already stated, it has a lot going for it location-wise. It's on a corner. It's on the two double dead ends. It has those giant green. I think they're green giants. I'm not sure. I looked on Street View. It's covered up for the most part, and that creek is constantly overgrown. I walked past it, and it's overgrown all the time. And so I think the one thing that wasn't responded to was the roof shape. And so I think, given he's changed everything else, I would be in favor of approving it and also approving the COA variance for the setback.
So you can put the closet back in.
I have a quick question, like, have you had the property surveyed?
No, but we discussed this with engineering and they were okay with doing this pulled from KGIS version of it, of the boundaries.
If that's the way
I need to add the condition that the base be lowered to align with the existing.
That's added.
Yeah, it's on number 2 there.
Okay, so just to summarize, the roof form has not changed, but the siding material and orientation has changed.
So if y'all want to approve it based on what you're saying, you could strike condition 1, so they wouldn't have to change the roof. Keep condition 2, add on a condition about the new siding, and then you would be good. Because the current plans that they submitted have the increased encouragement to that side setback. So by approving this, you are allowing for that.
Right.
Exactly, you're allowing for, you're granting the variance for this one, which for this side setback variance and for the combined side setback variance. If you were to do the plans where you reduced just by 1 foot, you'd just be giving the variance for the combined side setbacks. So leave it as is if you're fine with this, with that being a foot further out.
So strike 1.
Whomever makes this motion should clearly state which variance we are granting.
I'll take a stab at it, and I wanted to clarify with the siding, the fiber cement siding, you're trying to match the reveal of the existing house?
Yeah, and there's some variability with that, and I guess ideally it would just be to match the house, because if what's under the vinyl is usable, we want to restore that and use it, but if it's not, we'll just keep the vinyl and match that in size. And the difference is the reveal is different between the two. I think the Dutch lap is about 8 inches, and the vinyl is like a 4 or 6, so we would just match whatever is on the rest of the house.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify the change. I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation, striking recommendation number 1, adding the condition that the variance, that we approve the COA for the variance for the extra foot, and that the siding match the reveal of the existing house and fiber cement. Is that it?
Or wood, if the wood is
yeah.
usable.
Or wood,
Yeah, wood or fiber cement.
because you're for the existing house, not for the addition.
No, the addition would be wood too. If the wood on the existing house is good, then it's all wood.
Yeah.
And if the
it
wood
all
on the
wood.
existing
Oh, I
house is
see.
bad, then it's all vinyl. Or fiber cement.
Got it, okay.
Vinyl on the big house.
Fiber cement
on the
or
addition.
wood Dutch lap to match the reveal of the existing house.
Okay. Are you all good? Clear? Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you. And now, for the final one. 2802 North Broadway, which is case number 10C25IH.
All right. Our last case is for a new subdivision plat fronting Bill Williams Avenue. The plat combines 2 60-foot wide lots and 1 206-foot wide lot into one approximately 297-foot wide by 150-foot deep lot. The lot has approximately 119 feet of frontage on Bill Williams Avenue, and there is a greenway easement on the northeast lot line and a 12-foot wide access easement on the southeast lot line. The applicant had a workshop with the board in August where they presented plans to combine the lots and develop 3 apartment buildings on the site. Plats that do not meet the design standards require approval by the design review board. The design guidelines recommend maintaining and creating the standard 50-foot wide lots that characterize the original development pattern within the infill housing overlay. So combining the 3 lots into one 297-foot wide lot does not meet the design guidelines. The existing 206-foot wide lot is currently only accessible from the greenway easement off Bill Williams Avenue and from the access easement that runs through a commercial parking lot with frontage on North Broadway. Although it would be possible to obtain access via an access easement that runs through either of the 60-foot wide lots. The current access easement was previously used to access a house on the 206-foot wide lot that was demolished in 2015. The current zoning on the lots allows for a wide variety of commercial and residential uses, including multifamily developments. Access easements can serve commercial and residential development, but they cannot provide access to apartments. Combining the 3 lots allows the existing 206-foot wide lot to be accessed directly from Bill Williams Avenue, but it could be subdivided into standard 50-foot wide lots if an access easement was used instead. Bill Williams Avenue does not feature a uniform development pattern of 50-foot wide lots like most streets within the overlay. The original 1925 plat primarily featured 20 to 30-foot wide lots. Most of these lots have been combined into larger tax parcels and/or platted lots, and they're a mix of non-residential and residential uses along the street. Combining the 3 lots would not disrupt the pattern of the streetscape. The proposed new lot would be conducive for a larger development, and it would be necessary to make apartment construction feasible on the 206-foot wide lot. Under the current zoning, the new 297-foot wide lot could be subdivided later to create lots that meet the design guidelines. However, if the applicant did not pursue their current plans to build apartments, a larger non-residential development could be constructed on the new lot, which would not go to the design review board for approval. The board should discuss access to the existing 206-foot wide lot and how the new 297-foot wide lot would make multifamily and commercial development more feasible. If deemed appropriate, staff recommends approval of Certificate 10C25IH as submitted.
Logan Higgins, 133 South Gate Street, here on behalf of the applicant. We've got a lot to say about this, so let's see, I have 20 minutes or so. This is just to base off what we were here with the workshop 2 months ago. Just combining those property lines and making it all one contiguous development.
Do we have any questions related to that?
There was like a little bit of a warning in the recommendation of us accepting it. And if it wasn't the housing development, it could be what that we wouldn't review?
It could be any non-residential development. The infill housing overlay only gives y'all purview over residential development. So right now, this large parcel is zone CG2. So it could be developed into a commercial development. These parcels right now are currently zoned O office, so it could be developed into large office buildings. So just wanting to put the warning there that this lot stays there forever. If it's combined until somebody else does something, and if the project that we've discussed doesn't happen, here's potential scenarios.
If it wasn't combined now, could someone use an access easement to do a commercial project?
Yes, they could. The only limits to what access easements can serve are apartment development specifically. They can serve townhouses, they can serve duplexes, they can serve single family houses, they can serve commercial, but apartments they can't. So for him to build apartments on that area, they do need to combine the properties.
And just to clarify, we wouldn't see this at all if they weren't doing apartments.
Exactly. Or, I mean, you wouldn't see it at all if they were doing something that was not residential. As it is, somebody could do an office or commercial development right here. Combining them just would allow that development to be larger in scale than it currently is. So for example, like right across the street, you have, I think it's the WBIR place. So you could see a development similar to that as an example on that property if it was combined and this project did not happen.
This is already a predominantly commercial area in a landlocked lot. It backs up to Branson, which is residential, but everything from there north and west is all pretty heavy commercial industrial. So I would move to approve it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Last night.
Oh, yes.